But
I mean, I look very, very.
It's because you're not in Florida.
Yeah, that is an
also
issue.
the bright, bright light you have above us.
Yeah, maybe it's that, huh?
There you go. That added some color.
Fuck, that still looks terrible.
Well, you can't help what you're born with.
Wow.
Is this a G-rated? Is this a G-rated thing?
Oh,
or
this is
like
most
21
definitely
and up?
not a G-rated podcast. That is my new thing I have to state in the beginning because we got some flack for it.
We didn't get some flack for it.
Some, and I don't want to get any future flack. Hey guys, welcome to From the Ground Up.
And we're live talking about the times that we caught flack about who knows what.
But this is the not PG From the Ground Up podcast. Not
the
PG.
Parental advisory beforehand.
As always, you can buy our snakes online at portcitypythons.com. We are also posted on Morph Market.
We have just a few babies left for the season, and then we are starting all over.
Hopefully, in like 2 weeks, we'll be able to ship stuff out. I feel like March is the time where like it's a little bit warmer and we'll be able to ship stuff out. But you can also message us on Instagram or Facebook at Port City Pythons.
Port City Python shirts,
T-shirts,
logo T-shirts.
Is there an update on the Orient Society shirt?
So there is. So I mean, I don't want to say too much. We have it all designed and all specced out, and it looks like right now we're going to be able to get like $12 a shirt for each shirt that we sell.
Okay.
And shirts will probably be around $20 or so, and then that $12 will go directly to the Orient Society. The rest obviously goes towards the cost of the shirt. So.
Right.
Update on that, but it's not all in stone yet. And we're going to probably have someone on to we made ground on that. Thank you, Pia Bertolini, for that.
Thanks, Pia. She got us in contact with someone from the Orient Society who we can hopefully have on the podcast to talk about all the great things they do, and like that'll be like the launch kind of
that'll be the launch of the
partnership.
Are we telling too much?
I don't know. But,
go on, Nathan. What were you gonna say?
Is that the Orion down here?
Yeah, so they work throughout Florida, Georgia, Alabama, I believe, doing conservation work on the indigos.
I know. I'm friends with shout out to Michelle and Nick over at the Orion.
That's who we're gonna have on the podcast. Hopefully, is Michelle.
Whoa, you just announced it! Oh no!
Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome.
Yeah, so. Cool. We look forward to talking to her, hopefully, or someone involved. So we're still kind of working out those details. Other than that, Patreon supporters, thank you guys all for existing. It allows us to do this podcast at least once a week and drink beers and talk about reptiles.
No, let's not. Patreon doesn't allow us to drink beers.
Yeah, that's true. We were doing that anyway.
Your Patreon money is not going towards the purchase of beers. Let me clarify that. But if you want to donate to our Patreon, it is available.
You got to start a separate donation for the beer fund.
You join the
category. Because we drink such expensive beers here,
Yes,
really so expensive out there. But because we're so good at doing intros, our guest today is Nathan Sweeting, who is the founder and director of Smooth Waters Wildlife Park. Stop doing the mouth thing when I'm talking.
Because I didn't know if you would remember.
If I was gonna get it right. I know you thought I was gonna fuck it up, and so you were just mouthing it. You weirdo. I got it. Smooth Waters Wildlife Park.
Oh yeah, we were reading off the teleprompter that we got. Thank you, Patreon.
He's standing there with the cue cards.
Yeah, that's our producer. He's behind the camera.
So Nathan, give us a little background on how Smooth Waters Wildlife Park came to be.
Well, that's a long story. I don't know if we have enough time for that, but basically, in a nutshell, Smooth Waters is a smaller zoo / crocodile park. So it's real heavy on alligator, crocodile, reptiles in general. So we got a lot of cool stuff, and we'll eventually expand a little bit into birds we grow. But right now, our main focus is internally, a lot of conservation related, anything we can get involved in, lots of educational related stuff. And then for our guests, just a ton of fun smiles and crocodiles. That's kind of our.
Oh, I like that.
Really, yeah, it's got some flow to it. So, we can have a lot of fun with the guests, make them laugh and smile and have a good time, get a little interactive with certain things, and then open the door to talk to them about, conservation and it's mostly croc related conservation. But it's a lot of fun. We officially opened the park to the public. What was it, in July? This past July was our 1 year anniversary. So I guess we're about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half in now. And it's off to a really good start. We've been doing tons of field trips and, stuff out in the community. And so I think it'll just keep growing from here. But I've been in the zoo and entertainment industry for over 20 years professionally, working with this stuff. And then this was always the goal. And we finally kind of had an opportunity. It was somewhat of a trip and fall accident to kind of fast track our goal of opening a park.
So if you don't mind me asking, what was that trip and fall accident?
It was like, after, I went through the kind of zookeeping aspect of things and then up into management and then jumped out of the institution side of it and helped to, I started helping companies, or smaller attractions develop and grow and start and then do program development and eventually animal brokering between different facilities. And it started my own company. And from there, we finally had enough money set aside to put as like a down payment on a property and start this as more of a 10-year project. And then one day, some of my contacts with Florida Fish and Wildlife called me up and said, "Hey, I know you're shopping around. Well, just so you know, there was this guy a few years back that had this kind of private facility and he passed away. We don't know if it's still there or not, but after we moved all the animals out, last we heard, it was just basically an abandoned property and we don't know what's going on." So long and the short of it is I dug into that a little bit and connected with the guy's old business partner who was not an animal guy, but he was kind of along for the ride. And basically just sitting on the property, bleeding money. And, I said, "What are you going to do with it?" And he's like, "Well, I kind of want to sell it, but I don't want to see it destroyed. So I'm on the fence." And I was like, "Well, I'd like to do this." And he was like, "Well, make me an offer." And I was like, "I'm broke, so it's going to be like $0." And he's like, "Well, shake my hand and we'll figure it out." So, he basically was just like, "Cool, let's work with it." So there's a little bit more to it than that, but ultimately, he was totally on board for our goals and what we wanted to do. And then we just dumped everything we had in savings into renovating the daylights out of it and turning it into what it is now. So, that's literally, we tripped and fell into the opportunity of a lifetime, really. And then all the animals that we have here, all the big crocs and I'd say about 90% of everything that's here now, we just had housed at other facilities until we had our own place to move them to. So some of them, I've had for probably over 10 years. They were just at other parks or zoos or wherever. So
yeah, I think you're making like 90% of people who are listening to this extremely jealous. But
yeah, if nothing else, it's kind of almost like that We Bought a Zoo movie, except for that we had nothing to start with and a little less tragedy, but a little more struggle in different ways than in the movie. But yeah, it's kind of that's what it felt like to me. It was like, oh, this is like a made for TV movie. This is ridiculous. This doesn't really happen this way, but if you have a goal, don't derail your own goal. If you have it, keep working towards it and don't take any steps back, and just keep moving forward. And eventually you get what you want to get,
And now how much is like the acreage there and kind of what enclosures did you have to build? What was already there?
Some stuff here. So foundationally, there was a lot of concrete where there's a lot of big, man, I wish it was daytime out there. I could give you a little virtual tour of the place and stuff. But there was a lot of big like concrete. That's not quite concrete. It's almost like a Twitter version of concrete. There was these big like square rectangle concrete walled yards, and those were for all like the tortoise. I could have just said tortoise yards. Those were already there. So there was a lot of really good structural work already in place. But because it was abandoned for a few years, the earth pretty much took it back. Like by the time I got in there, I had a hole through a bamboo wall to find the entrance. That's how much overgrown it was. And then it looked like the first 5 minutes out of Raiders of the Lost Ark. I thought for sure we'd find a treasure chest and a boulder coming after me. And but so luckily there was a lot of the bare bones already there. So mostly what we had to do is just renovate the daylights out of it, comply with, the state caging requirements and standards for this type of thing, and then replace just about every lick of chain link fence in the place, and anything that had, been knocked down by a tree or, so lots of structural repair stuff, a lot of modifications to things. But luckily there was already some natural ponds in play. And so most of our enclosures are about as natural as you can possibly get in a captive situation, which is great for the crocs and the caiman and all that good stuff. Even the giant, even monitors and stuff like that. So, I mean, they're just having a ball in there, and it's really cool. So we were lucky in that sense. We didn't have a ton of money, but the money we had was spent pretty darn wisely and got us a lot further than I think we should have got. So,
and how do you
10 acres total to work with, and right now we're not even using half of that, so we have a lot of room to grow.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
And what are like the extra considerations when taking something that, I mean, used to be used for tortoises and using it for crocs?
Luckily, I mean, we didn't really have to convert that. Okay, so the tortoise yards, the way they were, honestly, we could have converted those into, some decent size croc or alligator exhibit type things. And we may do that with a couple of them, because some of the walls on some of them were like 4 feet high. So then just to meet requirements, you just kind of raise that up maybe with some glass, like end rigger type things, or something like that. And you can modify that, and that's extra time and money for that. But luckily the guy was like a big time, I guess he was doing a lot of exotic turtle breeding, like water turtles. So he already had a bunch of ponds there. So we basically just had to fence those off and just kind of enclose them a little bit and make them suitable for containing crocodiles or alligators or whatever. So in that respect, I mean, if you ever get a chance to come down and visit, come by and see the place, and it'll make a lot more sense. But I mean, you will be probably you'll probably be jealous.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But it was definitely like, oh boy, like I got a lot of friends and colleagues that were like, oh man, you got that place, because they had heard about it before we did, and not that they were going to make a play on it, but they were like, oh man, that place was set up pretty cool. So,
but I'm sure you still did a bit of kind of risking it all in taking the property and building it up and everything.
Well, I mean, because, here's the thing. So yeah, there was a template already there, and there was some structure and some enclosures. But I mean, between the time that he passed away and the time that I'm trying to jump in and get the place permitted, it doesn't necessarily get grandfathered in. When somebody passes away, the property just ceases to exist as far as that goes. So you can get certain things covered, and the state will say, yeah, we can just kind of keep that grandfathered, or they can say no. So in terms of, it could have been super, super, super costly to get up to speed with certain regulations now. Like if I were to do it today versus 2 years ago or 3 years ago, like it's way different now. Not way different, but I mean, there are a few new that like caging requirement wise, to where it would be like, oh man, that's going to cost an extra 20 grand. We don't have that, So
do the requirements change extensively year per year?
What was that?
Do the requirements change extensively year per year?
No, not usually year to year. But you, they did make a lot of changes to certain things, not related to crocs, but other species this past year, which just caught some people off guard. So that's kind of a hot button issue right at the moment. But it's not usually every year. I mean, there's always like addendums that are added, like, oh, okay, so and more often than not, it's just something like they're tying up loopholes, you know, where they see something like, oh shoot, well that gets a little confusing, so let's tighten that up. Or I'd say maybe you get some real decent changes, probably, I don't know, maybe like every 5 years.
Okay.
And decent not meaning good. It's just like a big hard hit, like substantial thing. Like I think 2010 or 2012, there was a big change in just your land requirement size. So prior to 2010 or 12, you didn't have to have a minimum acreage requirement for XYZ animal. And now you have to have 5 acres or 10 acres in order to have certain species, you know. So that's that can hit somebody real hard, other than, or if, like, let's say you got your hours to require for the permits, you know, and you're like, oh, I'm going to get them this year. And then all of a sudden it's like you put it down and they're like, nope, that's changed. Now you have to submit this, this, and this. And you're like, you know, so
do you have a certain like amount of time you need to spend with a mentor in order to get licensed for some crocodilians?
We will talk, sir. No, I'm just kidding. Sort of. I mean, there is a requirement, and this varies and differs from state to state. But in the state of Florida, it's not so much a mentor thing, but they do require, like, so let's say for crocodiles or alligators, you're talking about class 1 and class 2 animals. And then there's class 3, which is like tortoises and other stuff. But for like crocodiles, for example, you have to have 1,000 hours of work experience with them. You have to have at least 1 year minimum paid work experience in a licensed facility. And then you have to submit 2 letters of recommendation from people that are permitted. Actually, I think it's only one person has to be permitted. And then the other one can be from anybody. So it's just a matter of, like, you know, if you get a job at a zoo or something, you just document your hours. There's nothing really official with that. I mean, but they do want to see those hours submitted, that you were working with the animals, so you understand the husbandry and the care requirements and all those types of things. And then the application process is pretty easy and straightforward. But if it's the first time you're filling that thing out, man, it's all sorts of weird and confusing. But I mean, I've been doing it for years and years and years, filling out that stuff. So it's just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, there you go. You know, it's easy now. Now it just hits you in the pocketbook. But initially, yes, there's requirements. There are some volunteer hours and stuff, and I don't know if those are valid anymore. I mean, there's ways. Like, so if somebody comes down to Florida, or if you go to Texas, or you go to anywhere that has a lot of the croc and alligator facilities, there are ways to get in and, you know, mentor or work directly and get hours, you know. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for anyone, really.
Yeah, because I would think that a lot of people would be like, oh, I got to be a zookeeper, right, which means that I probably have to have a degree in order to get my paid hours to do, you know, to get the animals that I would like.
No, and no, you don't. I mean, it's not bad if you can do that. I mean, the only problem with the zookeeper thing is that it's a hard one to get into, because a lot of zoos do require like a minimum 2-year college experience to get into a direct keeper position. But that's not the only way in. Myself included, and a lot of people that I know, we all dropped out of college because somebody offered us a job doing exactly what we wanted to do right away and get paid to do it. So it was kind of like, that went on the back burner. And then, you know, but that was like 20 years ago. So now it's changed a little bit. And, but quite a few people I know now, I was going to say quite a few kids. Yeah, they're 20 something years old. I'm just getting old now. But they jumped in and started in. They didn't have the basic requirements for the job position. So they came in under the radar in a different department, or as a volunteer or a docent or an educator or whatever, and then worked their way up and transferred. So it's doable, but you don't have to do, there's tons of different facilities that are out there, like rescue type facilities or anything like that always need help, and you can always get into, and you can get, you know, it depends on what your motivation is. I mean, if you want to open your own park, or you want to get your permits, or you want to do XYZ, you know, you can I don't know. I'm rambling now. We'll just leave it at that.
Well,
if anybody out there listening is interested and they want to learn how to do these things and they need advice, like, don't be afraid to ask questions of anybody. We have Facebook and everything now. So, I mean, you can reach out to anybody on any level and just say, hey, what do you think I should do? And if they don't give you an answer, go to the next person and keep going. Eventually, you're going to run into me or somebody else that's more than happy to at least point you in a direction.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, it seems like Florida would be the place if you are
The
into these
ideal.
animals. But did you grow up in Florida?
I am a diehard born and raised Floridian. I love Florida. I love the climate and all that type of stuff. I would say it's probably, I mean, unless you really like doing lots of paperwork, crossing your T's and dotting your I's, Florida's not really the place. Florida has the strictest wildlife laws in the country. Like, I mean, if you can hold your own here, you'll be fine anywhere. But a lot of people, jump ship in Florida and go over to Texas because they like the way it's not that it's easy. It's not as restrictive, but it's the regulations and stuff are different. It really just kind of depends. If you like the humidity, if you like walking outside in the summer, feeling like you're walking around in Jello, then this is the place for you.
Now, what animals first opening the park, what were some of the first animals that you brought over?
And did you have like priority? How did you decide like what your priorities of what you wanted to have first in there?
That gets tricky. So, priority was, I wanted to try and do everything like really efficiently and do it all, like in one fell swoop, so all the crocodiles. And was I able to do all the crocodiles and all the, I was able to almost move all of the alligators and crocodiles in one day.
Wow.
And we're talking probably somewhere at that time, it was somewhere around 100 animals.
How?
Can you talk a little bit about transporting them?
Yeah. This is our dumb question number one. How do you transport a crocodile?
Well, all I'm going to say is if you get into this industry and you decide to rent a U-Haul, you don't have to tell them what you're moving. And you probably shouldn't. Okay. Love you, U-Haul. But so, the animals we were moving, the alligators and the crocs at the time, I think the size range was somewhere around, it was about 100 animals, but it was like words of 13 feet. So our biggest one was 13 feet, and then the smallest, probably 20 or 30 of them were, 4 foot-ish, or something like that. So the smaller ones, obviously easier. The bigger ones, it just took lots of friends, and that's not as hard as you would think. Coordinating it, I had a lot of experience with coordinating catches, whether it was for, moving stuff around or just, kind of project management, really. But so I just, you'd be surprised. It's all you got to do is make a couple phone calls to a couple different zoos where you're friends with the keepers and say, hey, we're catching crocs on this day. You want to come? And they're like, yeah. And they put in vacation time and everything. So, people are usually, really raring to go when you say, hey, it's croc catch, day or something. But, so that was tough. And kind of that was the priority. Like everything else was pretty easy and could move in slowly, but surely. The first animals that were coming in were, it all had to do with permits, really. That's what took priority. So like tortoises, you don't have to have the facility permitted for tortoises to have them on site. Does that make sense? Because you can have them as a pet. So so we weren't open to the public when we moved the animals here, but the alligators or the crocodiles or some of the big snakes or whatever the case is has to have a permit. You can't have on property until it's permitted. So we were really, really trying to get everything up to code as fast as possible. And then once they signed off and said, okay, you're good to go, here's your green light. And then it was like the next day, boom, let's move it.
I'm still trying to envision moving 100 crocodiles in one day, even with a big ass U-Haul.
Well, it wasn't 100 crocodiles. It was probably maybe 20 crocodiles, but the most of the rest of all that was all alligators. But even 20 crocodiles, all adults, It was a long day. I think we started at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I don't think I was locking gates and cleaning up until about 3 or 4 in the morning.
Okay.
So that makes sense.
So, like when you say a day, you mean like 24 hours? Like
yeah, literally. Yeah, literally. I think we almost did a 24-hour, thing. It was a 24-hour workday almost. So.
And now, what species do you keep at the park?
As far as crocodiles go, we have Siamese crocs, Nile crocodiles, the West African crocodile, which used to be the Nile croc too. So that's a new species. New Guinea crocodiles, alligators, Morlet crocodiles, a few different species of caiman. And I think that covers all the crocs. So a handful of different croc species. Then we got some, some iguana, big monitors, and a whole big handful of tortoises and and whatnot. And we'll keep growing it from there.
So as far as the crocodilians go and alligators, stuff like that, I mean, can they stay out in Florida all year long without any worries about the cold? Or
I wouldn't say without any worries, but yeah, pretty much, yes. So we can all year long. We do get a little concerned right in the middle of wintertime, but they're where we're at, we're pretty good. Like the water stays pretty warm, even on our lows. And don't get mad at me for this, but a cold night for us is in the 40s. Sometimes it'll drop into the 30s, but not for very long. So luckily we can just turn on our well water and that nice 70 to 72 degrees all year round. So that can help warm stuff. So we do have that advantage here. So up north, even up in northern Florida, and once you get into Georgia, they don't benefit anymore. So they get a little worried. And then once you get up there in New York or whatever, a lot of smaller facilities up there only operate, I think, 6 months out of the year. And they just lock it down because it's too dang cold for stuff. So, yeah, we can operate all year, not freak out too much.
A
little bit.
Now, I guess something that we don't talk about in snakes, which is very prevalent in, say, monitors and crocodilians, behavior. So can you tell us a little bit about like some species you work with and kind of the behavioral things that you do? Because I was watching, obviously Dorian took a video of you and you essentially called an alligator into your lap. And like, it wasn't even, it was a young alligator and you basically called it into your lap. Can you kind of explain about some of the training and behavior that you see?
I mean, I could sit there and talk your ear off for the next 3 days straight without taking a breath on that stuff. But when you get down to it, just a lot smarter than we give it credit for. So crocodilians specifically, I mean, they are just phenomenally more intelligent than we think, and they catch on like that. I mean, the same techniques you use to train a dog or a cat or a horse or a coworker, you can use with alligators and crocodiles. What's really fun about that is communication gap, because that's all the training really is just communication. Once you bridge that gap, then individual personalities of each animal, and then their specific likes and dislikes, and they do have that, and they do feel pleasure and pain just like anything else. And I don't want to be misleading, but I don't throw around like tame or anything like that. Like, you're not going to tame them or but you can build a relationship on. So it's a lot like being a teacher to a bunch of middle school age kids, where they all know the rules, do's and the don'ts, but does every kid follow them? No. You do have some class clowns. You do have some troublemakers that are just basically waiting for you to not pay attention before they start throwing spit wads at you. So you have to be on point and really kind of recognize the individuals and then study the behaviors too. So that's kind of that in a nutshell. But ultimately, the training thing, we do training with everything here. So it's the crocs, the lizards, the tortoises, turtles, everything. And one of the awesome byproducts that I've seen is, for one, you can make your work environment a lot safer. So I can get in the enclosures, and the animals, let's say the Nile crocodiles, they know when walking through the gate, they know if I'm in there to feed, work, or train. And if I'm just in there to work, like cut branches and that type of thing, then they basically act accordingly. They're just kind of like, he's just here doing that thing, let's go back to sleep. And they don't care. They leave me alone. Again, you don't want to let your guard down, but it does make it safer. Plus, overall, it makes their lives a lot happier, healthier, a lot less stressful. And our guests get to see the animals being active all the time. They just act like crocs. They act like lizards. They act like they would normally act if we're not watching them, or at least as close as you can get while they're being watched. But, the biggest problem we have here is when we have field trips explaining what all the tortoises are doing to each other, crocs, and it's like, they're just wrestling. Yeah, they're so comfortable that they don't care that everybody's around, and they just kind of do their thing. So you will see a lot of courtship behaviors and mating behaviors sometimes, and that gets a little awkward.
Now, are you attempting to breed them, or are you just letting whatever happen?
Some of it we don't. Okay, let's just say across the board, I don't care if they do successfully. What I like to see is the behavior. Like, so if they are doing their courtship behaviors, or whatever that species does naturally, then that's a good sign. It's a sign that they're comfortable and they're it's just like with us or anything else. If you're just stressed, if there's just too much going on, then the last thing on your mind is the funner things in life. You're not thinking about, anything other than that stuff that's just really weighing down on your head. And so when we see that, that's great. If it's not productive and they're just, one of them's sterile or something like that, or it's just not producing whatever, then we don't really care. That's not, that's not what we're trying to do. If we can, some of the species, yes. So the Siamese crocs, if we can get those breeding and producing, that's great, because those guys are almost extinct in the wild. And if we can get the hatchlings or those in the conservation stuff and the reintroduction, then that's great. We have a couple other species that are in that kind of same boat. So if we can use that for conservation stuff, then great. If the monitors start breeding and we have baby tortoises and stuff, okay, wonderful. We can always use that to buy, sell, and trade with other zoos and parks and stuff, and then get other stuff. Right. So I guess we're trying, but not really trying.
Right. If it happens, cool.
Yeah.
Now, rewinding a little bit. So say with the Niles, how do you build that relationship as far as they know when you're in there cleaning, they know when it's feeding? I mean, what are you doing to kind of nurture that relationship rather?
It's all bribery and extortion. No, I'm kidding, but kind of not. So with Niles, it's kind of interesting because they don't initially look at you as food, but I mean, ultimately you're kind of like a singing, dancing cheeseburger, so when you go in, like, one big mistake make is that when, let's say you're going in to feed certain species, or any of them for that matter, even just alligators that don't normally eat us, but they're walking in with a bucket of food, the animals are queuing into that. They know what the habit looks like. It doesn't take them long to realize, oh, that's the food bucket. Oh, the bucket sounds like this. The keys sound like this, and then when you walk in and that thing starts barreling down at you towards the gate, the natural instinct is to take that chicken and start throwing it at them. And guess what? They stop every single time. So you throw the food at them. It's effectively training the keeper to get them to stop. So it's kind of backwards. So sometimes I've had that hurdle where I have to retrain it. And when you're trying to teach somebody, you say, okay, don't back down. but that's confusing. It's like, don't back down doesn't mean stand still. Stand your ground means you don't want to run away and off of it, but you can move to the side, or you can make it more difficult for them to come at you and you're still engaging. And then it's just a matter of reinforcing and rewarding the behavior you want. So you just start yelling at them, hold, hold, hold. And the second they hold, you give them a reward. You feed them. And then you keep repeating that. And just like your dog at home, it doesn't know that his name is Fluffy until you've used it enough to where he's like, oh, I get it. That's my name. I see. Okay. And now you know your name, so it's the same type of thing. With the, I do use the singing, dancing cheeseburger analogy because, sometimes, they do see us as food. Sometimes it's one of the few species that does. So think about it like this. If you went and sat down, or somebody brought you a cheeseburger right now, and you're like, oh, that thing looks good, and you're getting ready to dive in and grab it, and the cheeseburger jumps up and just starts winging French fries into your mouth and says, wait a second, check this out. Look at this trick I can do. You might be, you're probably going to be freaked out to begin with, but you might be like, well, this is entertaining, and I don't have to do anything. Now feeding me, sure, I'll let this slide for a little bit. So that gives you that little bit of wiggle room, that open door to kind of convince them, hey, look, it's more in your best interest to not look at me that way and work with me instead of against me type of deal. And then you can kind of bridge from there. So that's how I look at it.
Speaking of food, noob question, do different species of crocs get a different variety in their diet?
No. We strictly feed them McDonald's.
Cheeseburgers and
crocodiles get Taco Bell. They don't like it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, sort of. Okay, so yeah, if like, because certain species, you will have some that are like more, along the lines of like fish eaters. They'll eat a lot of fish or snails or small things that they just kind of find in the water. And then you'll have other stuff that just huge variety in their diet. That's one of the trickiest things about captive management. Oh no, my battery is getting low. You were right. I think I fixed it. Is trying to balance that diet and get the kind of variety that you would normally see them getting in the wild, especially with the vitamins and nutrients and all that stuff they're getting. So we feed them all a special zoo diet as a staple. It's called Croc Chow. It's made by a company called Missouri. That really, I've been working with that company. Not directly, but I've been using their stuff and following that company for good 18, 20 years now while they were developing the diet. And that it is top notch. You want to talk about just hitting the full spectrum of, the vitamin and nutrient content and the proteins and all that type. Amazing. So that really kind of helps make sure that each species is getting exactly what they need. And then we can supplement with other things if we want. And then our enclosures, we have the benefit of allowing them to just have free reign of the snack cabinet. They're natural. So there's frogs and fish and everything else you can think of comes and goes constantly. So, there's a video on our page right now, our Facebook page, that I caught the other day that some guests were like, hey, what are they doing in the back? I'm like, I don't know. Let me go see. So I walked back in with the Niles and they caught a raccoon. I was like, sweet. So I got a little video of it. Hey guys, look at this. Check that out.
How bloody and gory is that?
The kids were scarred. You were happy.
By then, it wasn't bloody or gory at all. You couldn't tell what it was. The only reason I knew what it was because they're all hanging on to it and kind of tearing and rolling and doing whatever they're doing. I could walk right up into them and I was looking and I was like, oh, there's the fluffy tail. I see it. But, by the time they already did the deed and they're, it basically just looks like a big chunk of steak. You can't tell what it is. So it wasn't crazy gory or anything. So it is.
I'm shocked a raccoon come anywhere near them. That's a dumb raccoon.
Well, I didn't see him.
Well, the raccoons, yeah. Well, it probably didn't know. It probably was on the trail.
Can't smell them.
Think about it though. Like if you've never seen a crocodile before and you smell something weird, what's the first thing you're thinking of? It's like, oh, Ted farted, or you don't know what it is.
Yeah, you just go check it out.
It smells like gym socks over here. I don't know what that is. And it turns out to be a velociraptor. You don't know, you know? So maybe it just didn't know. But then the thing is too, I mean, there's a ton of turtles in the ponds and stuff like that. So there could have been, I don't think there wasn't any turtle eggs or anything, but the raccoons are always scouting around for stuff like that. So if there were bird eggs or something nearby, it was probably coming in, foraging around. And then crocs are sneaky too. So, I mean, it may have just come over to the edge of the water to get a drink or wash its paws, or maybe it caught a snail and it's dipping the snail in the water to clean it off, because raccoons are weird like that.
And it chose a bad pond.
And the croc was just dumb hamburger. You know, and he just got him.
So there's no worries though of them eating native wildlife. I mean, there's not much that could come of it as far as like vectors for anything.
No, I mean, any native wildlife that comes in there, I mean, it's technically fair game, but you're not going to have that in any kind of volume to where even if I had 1,000 animals here, kind of decimate anything to that level. Plus, I mean, if you had, it's kind of like zombie apocalypse related stuff, you know. So if you, and just every time one of your friends went to that area was getting killed by zombies, it's like, you know what, let's just not go there, you know. So that kind of stuff, you know, all the birds and the other wildlife would just say it's just way too risky and they're gonna stay away. Fortunately, we don't have that issue. So we do have, it is really cool, but we do have a ton of just native wildlife that does come here for almost sanctuary reasons, and they'll hang out in here. So we get that plus side too. But yeah, we don't have there wouldn't be any issues with anything like that. But
now I've seen things about, in particular, say alligators that, I mean, you can basically call them by name. I mean, have you seen any, like, they know certain sounds from another? I mean, you can call one and not the other. I mean, what's the deal with that?
Yeah. It was like I was saying, like with the dog before, it's the same thing. Like, you can teach them as long as you use their name in that context, they'll learn it. And we have they all know their names, and they'll all have, sometimes we'll do that a lot for like feeding purposes or veterinary related stuff. So they'll have their specific stations. So it's like, hey, it's feeding time. And it's like, you know, Lucy, you go to your spot. Lumpy, you go to your spot, you know. And so they all know where their spot is. So yeah, call them individually and work them individually.
And as far as, sorry, what do you? So I got distracted.
Okay, it's okay. We have some questions in the chat. Our friend James asked, do you have any interest in Chinese alligators?
I do have interest in Chinese alligator. Thank you, James.
And breeding them or anything like that?
Yeah, I would love to get. There's some species that are just easier to get than others. I am currently talking to a couple of people. We would love to get like a pair or a group of Chinese alligators here. We have the room. We have some pretty awesome setups that would be perfect for them. So if we get involved with that, that would be awesome. And yeah, I definitely want that species.
Now, what species, I mean, is that next on your list, or is there anyone in particular that you'd like to work with next?
Next on the list, there's a few. Like, I want to, you know, so I have a bunch of feelers out there. So I, you know, talk to my contacts, colleagues, and friends all the time. So, I mean, if I had say just the top 5, I want to get, I would love to get involved with, again, this is just conservation related stuff. So these would be the species I'd want to get first, but like the Orinoco crocodile, there's a program in place for them. I'd love to be involved with that. The Chinese alligator, the Filipino crocodile, crocodiles I always really enjoyed working with. So those would just be fun. There's no direct conservation stuff in place from the United States to Cuba to help with that, but I'd still, you know, love to work with those. And then saltwater crocodiles would be fun just because I miss working with those. I've done a lot of work with those over the years, and they're just big and fun and big.
This may be a stupid question, but saltwater, I mean, do you have to keep them differently, or do they do fine, in your regular pond?
So that's kind of a funny one, because the saltwater crocodile doesn't actually live in saltwater. They get the name just because they're famous for swimming miles, and I mean, you could probably find them almost 100 miles out in the ocean, maybe not that far, but quite a distance out in the open ocean, hunting, eating whales and stuff, like, for like carcasses and stuff like that. But they're famous for going from island chain to island chain to find new territories and new hunting grounds and that type of thing. So that's where they get that nickname. And I think that's mostly on this side of the world that we call them saltwater crocodiles. I think on their side of the planet, they're just referred to as the Indo-Pacific crocodile. But here in the States, we have the actual saltwater crocodile, which is the American croc. And that's one of the only species that live predominantly in brackish water. So you'll find them coastally, like throughout South America and Central America, just like in the brackish water stuff. But they don't have to live in salt water. So they can all drink fresh water. All crocodiles can actually drink salt water, even though they may never, ever see salt water. They have glands in their mouths that help get rid of the excess salt. Alligators or anything in the alligator family does not. So they're like us. They can hunt in the salt water, but they have to go back and drink fresh water. But as far as requirement wise, just keep them in fresh water and you're fine.
Interesting.
Wow.
That's ideal. I made up like half of that. So
I wouldn't know the difference.
We would never know. Dale in the chat said to ask about Trapper.
Yeah, Trapper is our big, he's kind of becoming the star of the show. He's our biggest alligator here, even though our kind of whole catchphrase thing is, fun smiles and crocodiles. Trapper is awesome. He's our go-to animal for like training demos when guests are here and stuff like that. So when it's warm enough, we go in and, hey, let's run him through some routines and stuff. But he's about 13 feet long, about maybe 6-ish, 700 pounds, really physically fit. He's awesome. He's amazing. And Trapper's pretty cool.
With an animal like that,
I didn't name him, by the way. Originally, he was caught 20-something years ago by trappers and was donated to a zoo. And about 8 years ago or so, that zoo closed down. So they called me and said, "Do you want him?" And I was like, "Heck yeah!" The zookeepers got super creative when they named him. They called him Trapper. I would have gone with Steve or something, but so I didn't name him. But he knows his name, so we'll keep it.
Was this animal donated for its size? Was it already big when it got donated to the zoo?
No, he wasn't like crazy big. Like when the trappers got him, they I think he was about 10.5 feet long. So he wasn't like huge. But for whatever reason at the time, they just decided to, instead of putting him down like they would normally do, they just donated him to that zoo at the time. Maybe it was already prearranged. I don't know. But either way, I mean, it was like perfect. That animal has like just that perfect personality type for like training related stuff. He's like a sponge. He just seems to want to engage as much as we do. So it's awesome.
And that brings up another question. So it's like, is it a personality thing that makes a gator, good to work with? Or is it when you get it as a baby, you can train it throughout its life? I mean, what's kind of the mixture of, is it
nature versus nurture?
Well, the whole, raising it from a baby thing, I think is the biggest bunch of pet store garbage I've ever heard in my life. Like it doesn't hurt to start when they're small and kind of grow with them, especially for, anybody starting out, like the more novice keepers or hobbyists or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's fine. Kind of grow with it and you can learn as you go. But there is no reason whatsoever to think that you can't. That animal, he's like in his early 40s probably, and he didn't get a whole lot of training in captivity or at all, so I started doing training with him. I mean, he was an old dog. So yes, you can absolutely teach an old dog
new tricks.
That you don't have to start when they're young. I'm not saying it hurts to start when they're young, but I can take the most problem croc from anywhere. You know, if I get one for free from a place that decides, oh, it's just unmanageable, it's going to kill our keepers, we don't want to deal with it, you take it. I can get the groundwork laid in 2 days. You know, so I can start changing that and getting on the same page and almost no time flat. The learning curve is a lot better than what people think it is. And I think if more people on the hobby side actually kind of look a little bit more into, you know, read a book or two on operant conditioning techniques or training and that type of thing, and you start to see, oh, okay, so I'm defining this as this, and you're mistaking this for that. And then once you see that your behavior a little better, then it's like it cuts your time like in half, if not more, just on trying to, you know, like let's get this lizard to calm down so my Nile monitor's not trying to eat my finger every time I stick my finger in there or something. You know what I mean? So there's lots of different stuff you can do, but I think there's a lot of misconception out there, and I think the whole it's young thing started mostly. I think a lot of the misconception stuff and the misinformation came from like the old timey pet stores where they don't want to raise animals. They just want to unload them really fast. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, hey, just keep it in this tank. It won't outgrow it. That's bullshit. It's going to outgrow it.
Right.
You know, but
you talked about,
anyway.
Sorry.
No, go for it.
Off.
I'm just going to trail on until you cut me off. Yeah, go for it.
You talked about animals being donated. What percentage of your animals have been donated to your facility?
And what are common, you know, reasons why that would happen?
Get a lot of stuff donated. Occasionally, we don't really kind of put it out there that, hey, you know, if you have wayward whatever, then let us know. Because if you do.
You open the floodgates.
Yeah, you open the floodgates, literally. You will get inundated with just random whatever. But I would say pretty much the only things that we ever get once in a blue moon are some of the tortoises. And it's 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a sulcata, you know, because they get huge. You know, it's a great tortoise, especially for beginners. They're super hardy and to manage. They do really well, and but they're going to outgrow your means or outlive you. So where's the backup plan? So a lot of the time we wind up being somebody's backup plan with that stuff. And occasionally, you know, somebody will say, oh, my iguana is getting too big. Do you want it? Like, sure, whatever. And a lot of the time, if somebody reaches out to us and says, hey, do you take the animals? We might not actually do, you know, we don't look at ourselves like a rescue or anything like that. But if somebody makes that effort and they call us and say, we'd like it to go to a good home, can you take it? If we can house it, then we'll house it. If we can't, we're still going to say yes anyway, because I know that I have more resources than they do, so I can make sure it gets to where they would hope it would go. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen, you know, the donation thing. So
now with kind of the work to where, you know, you're working with things that were zoo stock or something like that, like how does that come to be?
Say that again. What?
Like when you're working with certain species, like say you got Cuban crocs or something that is a zoo type animal, you know, it's not from the pet trade. Right. Kind of how is that network set up? You know, how do they get in contact with you? All that good stuff.
That's a lot of just rubbing elbows. I think it's almost probably the exact same thing as how we all connect with each other, even in the hobby side of it. You know, it's a lot of networking. You go to a lot of the same events, you sit at the same tables. Eventually, you know, like, so as you're a zookeeper, you go around and visit other zoos and visit their keepers, and you make friends. And then as you move up in the ranks, you know, everybody, I kind of almost look at it like it's like going back to school, like grade school. So, but you're starting off in like middle school. So you're kind of you're feeling yourself out. You're trying to find what to do. By the time you get to high school, now you're joining the clubs and getting more into the cliques and all that stuff. And that's almost like moving up the ranks to like supervisor, director, or curator. And then you start to network and meet all these people. And then that's how that happens. So us being more of a privately owned facility, And we're not quite like a bigger zoo, like with the affiliations or accreditation. We can still work with those other zoos because we already have a relationship professionally. So then it's just a matter of filling out a lot of extra paperwork, jumping through a lot of extra hoops, and then getting approval from board of directors or AZA or this or that or the other. But that's really all it is, just networking and staying active in whatever community you're involved in, and not being an asshole. That's pretty much
keeping friends.
Really. Yeah.
Especially to zoo people.
I try to help as much as people have helped me. A lot of help and a lot of good advice and support from way higher level than me, when I was, way down here, and from other zoos and other parks. And, and it was really incredible, so I owe them. And anytime their people, whether I kept a good relationship with that person or not, it was like whenever any of their team reached out to me for similar kind of help as they were coming up, you return the favor. It's just like, yeah, come here. I'll show you whatever you want to learn. Let's do it. Just don't die, please.
Yeah, I guess that's different in your case because yeah, the scenario is...
In your case is that someone's dead. 100%.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, there's some risk, but I mean, I have one of the best. I'm confident in what I know and what I do. I'm not arrogant about it, or I try not to be. And I really, really don't put anybody at risk. I have one of the best safety records in the world. I don't know if it's the best, but it's got to be up there. I've only had 2 accidents in well over 20 years. So that's pretty good. And that's also why we build everything on wood, so we can knock on wood. But I mean, I don't know if I'm that good of a teacher. I know what I'm good at and what my strengths are. And I try and, I mean, as you guys have already noticed, I do have a tendency to soak the sponge. So it's like you ask a simple question and I'll give you this. It's not a yes or no. I give you this big, long dissertation on blah, 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 blah.
Well, that's good for podcasts.
Yeah,
that makes
great.
Our job easy.
Sure. I think I can oversaturate sometimes. So I usually need a translator while I'm trying to teach people, or I'll script myself on how to teach somebody. So I'll say, just say that, just say that, just say that. Don't oversaturate. And then it keeps everybody safe. But I've never, ever, ever, again, knock on wood, but in any scenario where I've been teaching somebody, I've never let anybody get themselves situation, and I'm always happy to jump in and take the heat for them to make sure that they get out if something does go wrong.
So what are kind of some of your base rules as far as safety goes? What are some things that you have to do every single time to make sure that you're safe?
Or your employees safe, and how many employees do you
had the
have?
Same question, didn't you?
No, mine is how many employees does he have?
Currently, none. It's just me, pretty much. My wife jumps in and helps out when she's available. But right now, we just manage it as us. We do have kind of a reserve team, so to speak. So it's just some nearby friends and colleagues that I've worked with Crocs for years. And if we ever have anything urgent going on, like let's say we're doing egg collection, or hey, we got to move these animals over to here, or anything like that, then and coordinate that. So we kind of have staff, but not really. Like I said at the beginning, we're pretty much fresh out of the gates. So I think if things keep going the way they're going, then I'd say I probably have 1 or 2 paid staff members on with us, and then hopefully by next year that'll expand, and it'll be off and running, and then we'll be one of those parks that has like 100 employees or something like that one day. But right now it's just me. Please help.
That's a lot for one person.
I need a day off. It is, but I mean, the fortunate thing is I've had the past 20 years to kind of learn how to manage. So even though it's a large number of animals and it's a big space and it's a lot of area to cover, as long as you have a good system in place, and then you just kind of iron out the kinks on that system, then it gets easier to manage. And you just kind of, so it's not like a militant, like it's got to be this, but it does make things a little bit more fluid. And then you just have to be ready to adapt, because there can always be things ready to go. So in an instant, the second, a storm hits or something like that, you hear a crack off in the distance, like, oh, crud, was that a tree? And then it's like immediately it stops raining, you get out, or if it is raining, you get out there and make sure your fences are all good, and then you're just ready to stretch that thing back up and stand up a fence at a moment's notice. So it's all stuff that luckily I had the advantage of doing for years under somebody else, and I had the fortunate position of not being responsible for any of it, so it was that guy's problem. So if it went really, really off the rails, then he was the one that had to answer for it, and I was just getting paid by the hour doing what I was told, so I could learn from everybody else's mistakes and then just develop a system that's pretty easy. I mean, it would be nice to have a day off once in a while, but is what it is. At least I'm getting paid to do something I probably would have done for free. Oh, wait a second. I am working for free for right now. Eventually we'll get paid, but
So do you maintain a job as well as this, or do you, like, what do you?
Not anymore.
Okay.
I mean, sort of, kind of. I mean, this is the job. Shoot, did I just lose you? No, it's still there. Why is it not doing it? I can't tell if my battery's charging or not. I think it is, but we'll just play it again. Hold on a second. I'll keep talking, but I gotta clear out. Sorry.
You're good.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think I'm charging now. Anyway, having a job outside of this, I don't anymore. This is the thing. So luckily, we're doing well enough to where we're about this far away from being really consistently at our break-even point of everything here. In a weird sort of way, it pays a little to so I can cover what I need to do so that I don't starve to death. But that's about it for now. But it's awesome, because what we do get coming in from the general public is keeping it even. I can treat this as a full-time thing, so I don't have to worry about doing any other. I can focus 100% on this and just make it grow that much faster. So, but I used to be in the so I'd be zookeeping somewhere or doing entertainment or something somewhere, and then building structural whatever things so people don't die in buildings and things, which was awesome too. That was fun.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
What do you do as far as, I guess I can track back to before you hijacked, systems as far as safety goes?
So what do we do for like state systems? Is that what
like just ways that you ensure safety around, working with the crocodiles and stuff like that. Something that are kind of the basics for someone who's working with alligators or crocodiles.
We have kind of like a basic emergency action plan type of thing, which is almost muscle memory at this point. It's like, what do you do first? If something goes wrong, you know where the hospitals are, the quickest routes there, and it's more or less. I mean, you could. I think I stole Odyssey from half a dozen other zoos or attractions that I've worked with or for, where I just liked how they wrote it, or I liked how fluid it was. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm going to do that. But that's what I always did on the job. So for us here, we just have safety gear hidden everywhere in case we need it. So at each of the enclosures, we have like a catch rope, which is basically like a calf rope, and in case we have to get in there and catch a crocodile really fast or an alligator, to neutralize the situation. I don't know. And then we'll have different things that we can use, different tools for basically any scenario, and just kind of hidden all over the place. That way there's something you can go to, like shit hits the fan, it's like, oh, I need this tool, and you know exactly where it's at or hidden nearby, and you just snatch it up, and then you're ready to go. The big problem, especially with wild animals, there's some stuff you can kind of plan for and have a game plan for, and then the worst part of it is that's like number one on the list. Like, so on your safety protocol list, rule number 1 is expect the unexpected. So if you can't adapt and you freeze under pressure, that's a big problem. So you have to be able to just be ready to go. Yeah, you have to be prepared to have your mind blown every second and just be like, oh, I did not see that coming. How do I make that work? And then you just go from there. So
now you said
for me, that's fun. I have a lot of fun with that. What's that?
You said you had 2 basically mistakes or mishaps that happened. I mean, what was it that you learned from those ones that you are not going to repeat in the future?
I learned, so the first time I got bit on the hand, and I learned that I did not like being bitten. It was not fun. And then the second time around, it just solidified my dislike for being bitten. So I just made sure that never happened again. Both times that I got bit, though, it was a law of averages thing. It was by about a 8-foot alligator. Not the same alligator both times. It was different alligators. But that was back early on in the career when I was still doing more entertainment-y stuff. So there was a lot of I was doing like gator wrestling show type things. So, when you do 10,000 shows, you're probably maybe going to slip up once or twice.
Wait, so did that happen in front of an audience?
Oh, yeah, both times.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so the first time I saw it happening before it happened, and it just caught my fingertips. And I was just like, well, dang it. Like, there goes my safety record. So, I went like 4 or 5 years without any injuries and then got caught. And then I just kind of looked over at my backup person, which is another safety thing. You always have a backup person when you go into some of these enclosures. It's always a good idea. But anyway, so I'm doing the show. There's probably 800 people there, and I'm just kind of like, he grabs me and I'm like, oh, well, there goes my safety record. And my buddy turns around. He's like, what? He got you? And I'm like, yeah, he's got me, and then we just changed gears. I was like, all right, folks, so the show you get to see today is how you get your hand out of an alligator's mouth once you got a hold of it. I sat there and stayed calm and made jokes about it. And every time he would clamp his mouth shut a little tighter, I was like, ooh, that smarts, just make silly jokes about that. And about 12 minutes later, we finally got my hand out of there and wrapped up the show and waved at everybody and took off. So,
no. So that's obviously an animal that is larger than you. You weren't scared at it, rolling or bringing you anywhere.
Yeah. Pound for pound, they are way stronger than any person you're ever going to meet. And but I wasn't, it was my first time getting bitten by a big alligator, or any alligator for that matter. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, it's like one of those things. It's like, how good are you with pain? Well, you don't know until you get hurt, and you're either really good with it or you're not so good with it. I don't like it, but I handle it really well, apparently. But first rule is stay calm and don't panic, just, and then you have to assess the situation. So even my backup guy, his first job is to just stand still and not do anything. Because if you run over there, you can escalate the situation, so we were contained, it usually goes if you get bit by an alligator, like, especially doing what we were doing, like a wrestling handling type show. It's either going to grab and let go. So just quick bite, let go, or it's going to bite and hold on. And the worst case scenario is that it bites and holds on and then shakes or rolls or tries to. Oopsie, tried to drop you there for a second.
A bad time to lose you.
Somebody was trying to call and I was like, no. But the so you have to plan accordingly. And luckily for me, that first one was it just bit and held on, and then we were just sitting there in a stalemate, like deciding who's gonna let go first. And I wasn't holding him, so he had to let go first. So that went. ideal. It was a little long. It was really tough getting his mouth open because he just wasn't opening. And then from there,
did you basically have to like physically pry it open, or?
Yeah, so we had at the place what we call bite ropes, which are 2 loops of rope, and then there's a frayed piece on each end, and then you can hook the bottom teeth with one rope, and then the top teeth with another rope. You know, you can use your foot to push down on, you know, one, just trying to pull the mouth open, and your backup guy is going to do that. And then you just stay calm and sit there and make jokes at his expense. It's like, oh, you need to hit the gym, and, you know, stuff like that. And then he messes it up on purpose, and everybody has a good laugh. And but in this case, I mean, this thing was clamped down good, so it took 2 full-grown men pulling on different ropes to get it open 2 inches, so I could slip my fingers out and walk away. And I was like, "There's some power right there. That's awesome." You know, so
now, is that
I would say if I learned anything from it, though, I mean, it was, the reason, I mean, and that's immediately what you do right after.
Right.
You sit there and you say, okay, why did that happen? How did that happen? And what can I do to prevent it next time? You know, where did I mess up? Because the alligator didn't mess up. His job is to exploit you screwing up.
right?
You know, that's his whole job, or her, you know. So it's kind of like when you're in that show, your job is to do what you were trained to do the right way, and hopefully not hurt the animal. And, you know, because if you do, you're not doing it the right way. And the alligator's job is basically to exploit you not doing it right, you know. So that wasn't his fault. It was my fault. So basically my head wasn't in the game. There was something in my personal life going on, and I let that distract me, and I'm not paying attention. And I should have, like I said, like I knew it was going to happen. I saw it. And I should have stopped right there and taken a step back and started again, instead of just trying to follow through with what I was doing. So I learned from that. And then the second time around was a result of, again, my head wasn't in the game. And at the beginning before I even went out to start the show, I even told my backup guy, I should probably sit this one out. Whatever. It's, you know, I'll let you do them for the rest of the day. No, I should have had him start him right there. You know, the second you second guess yourself, just sit it out, you know. So that was the main reason I got nailed in the second one. Because, yeah, I wasn't focused. My head was somewhere else.
Is that kind of,
you can't do that.
Is that the appeal of working with these animals? Is that, you know, you have to be 100% in it all the time? No, you need to be so focused that you can't ever think about anything else while you're doing it. Like you're in the moment.
There is a weird kind of zen with that, I guess. I don't even really know what zen is. It just sounded like a fun word to use. But I think it's kind of, I mean, I don't know if that's the attraction, maybe. I mean, I guess it could be a danger element for some people, but I do feel really comfortable in that situation. And I do like going in and having to be, you know, kind of that focused. And I get really, really good when things start to go really, really wrong. Not because I mess up or anybody else messes up, but just something like when the curveballs come in and it's just like, wow, this could be it. And it could all be over in about 30 seconds and nobody ever talks about it. You know, we're just all dead, or I'm dead, you know, and it's just kind of like, it's terrifying, but it's a really awesome, I love it. It's a really fun moment. It's like everything goes in slow motion. You're just kind of like, oh, I can see. It's like a Matrix moment where you can just see the ins and outs of everything. And it's like, okay, well, let's just get out of this, and then we'll go and we're getting drunk tonight, playing the lottery and everything, like across the board, because somehow I have some good luck all of a sudden, you know. But I don't know. Maybe that is kind of an attraction to it. I try not to take unnecessary chances, if that makes sense. You know, I don't sit there and I don't think I ever did really try to take those chances. I like to experiment and push the limits and see what can be done, and you know, more or less in an effort to learn more about the animals. But at the same time, you're learning more about yourself too. But
do you still do like presentations and gator wrestling at the facility now?
No, we don't do the handling stuff. Like, so I don't. No, we do like like training related stuff there. There is a practical, in my opinion, there is a practical application and necessity to learn how to do handling. So I'll still teach that stuff.
Can you explain that a little bit as far as why that's necessary or why you think it's necessary?
So a gator wrestling show, like all the dumb little stunts, like let's hold the mouth open with my face and stick my, none of that stuff's practical for anything. That's just stunts. But knowing the physical mechanics of the animal and how they're going to act and what it feels like to have certain muscles move and indicate what it's going to be doing, and learning the physical limitations of that. It's stuff you can't learn by observation and you can't learn by reading in a book. So once you get to that point, there is a lot of practical application that becomes really, really valuable. Now, it's not to say that, you know, when I'm going to catch and move an animal, I have to do it freehand. No, you don't have to do that. There are tools that make it safe for the animal and for you and your team, and you don't have to be hands-on. But where I think it is valuable is when shit hits the fan, everything else goes wrong, and then you're left standing there because of protocol or lack of skill, or lack of training. You're left waiting for the protocol while you could be actively saving someone's life or an animal or something like that. So that's a big problem, I think, with some zoos is they're, like, policy wise, they're strictly hands off. They're not allowed to go in the enclosures and work directly with the animals. It's safety protocol. So the animals have to be shifted or there has to be a barrier. And that's all fine and good, but I don't have to wait. Some idiot holds a kid up over a fence and they fall in a pond. So that's not going to happen here. But if, you know, it happens somewhere else, I don't have to wait. I'm over the fence.
Harambe.
Being slung over the fence before anything happens. And that kid makes it out in one piece, and hopefully I do too. But I opposed to some other people that don't have the kind of training I've had, I'm going to have more of a chance of making that out in one piece because of that training. So it's like training that's good to have and hopefully you'll never need, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's almost kind of like our version of like tactical training, you know, the way I see it. So, but you can learn a lot about the animal behaviorally by, you know, physically getting in there. I think the hot dog bullshit stuff is exactly that. It's just hot dog, like manhandly garbage, which it's like, I don't think you're fooling anybody. You're not tougher than that thing. It's like, ooh, look at me. Watch me. I open his mouth. I'm big, strong Billy Bob redneck. And it's like, no, you're not. You're a fat ass who's getting the mouth open because it wants to open its mouth. You're not fooling anyone, Jim Bob.
It's what's the suspend this? There's the expression, something of disbelief.
Suspension of disbelief. What are you talking about?
Yeah, when you're seeing someone wrestling as a like watcher, we know it's not real, but it still brings us. We like to pretend
it is very
well,
real.
it's real,
yeah,
but
yeah.
you know,
there's danger involved.
But there's antics that they add to it that are not necessary.
Oh yeah, it's like if we were to see someone at a rattlesnake roundup, you know, doing the rattlesnake popping a balloon thing, we know that that's bullshit. I mean, I'm sure just like Nathan thinks that, you know, putting the alligator's head under your chin is somewhat silly, you know, because it's for a crowd, it's to entertain.
Yeah,
and I mean, I'm kind of a hypocrite with that too, because I mean, I did all that stuff for years.
Yeah,
you know,
you got it out of
was
your
my
system.
job, but that was my open door to get in and do that stuff. But the best part about that was so I got to develop kind of my own handling style too, which is a lot. I choose to work with the animal instead of against the animal. So, and I think most of the gator handlers that are out there we're all on the same page with that. Like, even though they might say in their script, and keep in mind they have to go with the script most of the time. You know, they're saying one thing, but they believe another. It's not like, oh, look at this beast and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, they're being paid to say that, but they in their hearts still love and respect that animal. And they're not trying to manhandle it or hurt it. So I don't want anybody to get that idea that, you know, I make fun of Jim Bob because it's funny to me and he doesn't exist and it's a character. But there are some dummies out there that are like that, like, ha, 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 ha,
Yeah, it's not a way to prove that you're tough. I mean,
It's
right,
just a show.
exactly. And I don't think you're fooling anybody with it. It's like the best thing I ever heard from anybody anywhere along the way, it was a girl and something like that. And she's, some guy was, it was after a show. It wasn't me, but the guy was like all just being kind of like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I got this scar from a big, and she's like, look, I don't care about your scars because it just means you fucked up, dummy. And she just shot him down right there. And it's like, scars aren't cool. It means you messed up, like, and I was like, oh, that's hilarious, but I still think scars are a little cool, but whatever. But yeah, I mean,
the end result of everything. I mean, you appear to have all your digits, and it seems that despite two situations, you came out all right.
Yeah. I still have all my fingers and toes and original teeth, and so I'm good. But
a question from the chat. That was not a good transition on my part, but James asked, do you know what the two little organs that protrude from under the chin of baby alligators is for?
They are musk glands.
They are
glands. Yep. They're just musk glands. I'm trying to fix my little chargery thing here right now.
Wait, so they can actually musk much like a snake would, but it's out of their chin?
No, it's right here. So there's two right here, and there's actually a couple near the hind legs, right near the they're not like anal pores or anything like that, but it's on the inside of the thighs near the base of them. But yeah, the two main ones that people will see is right here. So if you're holding a small alligator and those things are sticking out, it's pissed off at you.
That's crazy. I had no idea.
Fuck you, man. And they're trying to musk and scent out to kind of display. So they'll do that sometimes in a distressed situation, or they're trying to be like, hey, I'm a big tough guy. So the males will do that a lot in like the breeding season, with courtship and stuff. Females will do it sometimes, but it's mainly just, that's all that is. It's just musk glands.
And now is that,
man, when they musk, it's got a neat little stink to it. I like it. It smells good, but it's kind of like a weird good stink. It's not like, when you get, it's not like getting sprayed by a tiger. I mean, that's just gross.
I don't know what that would be either.
Have you ever seen that? Like when a tiger gets mad at you and it sit there and
no.
sprays. Oh, that's gross. Because I mean, that's just it peeing on you, basically to say, ha ha ha.
Yeah, like that's what I'm used to, though. I mean, as far as most animals, it comes from the back end. I didn't know that they had them, around their mouths, in that area. It's crazy.
Like, yeah, it's not like when snakes, they're internal though, aren't they? Right? Yeah, they're internal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they come out of the cloaca region. So yeah, that is kind of gross because sometimes it is mixed with the other stuff.
Yeah,
but yeah, with the alligator, I mean, it's not like you're getting like butt juice from the neck or something. I mean, it's just all it is just kind of a scent. It'd be like if I just didn't shower for a few days, I got the BO kick, and I'm like, reek on my stench, and that's just kind of how I defend myself or something.
And do the baby ones tend to do it more than the older ones, or there's no correlation?
Seen like baby ones do it, like a real little ones, but like like a 2 or 3 footer or whatever. I think sometimes you'll have that situation where the smaller they are, the easier they are. The more scared they are of just random things, and the bigger they get, the more confident they get. We don't see it a lot here at all, mainly because not interacting with them, mainly because they all know that we're not really that much of a threat.
Right.
So we don't ever get that situation. But yeah, I've seen it quite a bit over the years, just working with stuff. But
you just don't stress out your animals. That's a good thing.
Yeah. I try not to make them mad.
Different question from the chat. A while ago, you were talking about like networking and staying in touch with people who you look up to and everything. Mm-hmm. So Dale asked, who do you look up to in the industry currently?
Oh shit, who do I look up to? I don't know if I really look up to anyone. I look up to my kids a lot. I mean, they come up with better ideas than I do these days, and they're both under 7. I don't know if I really look up to anyone. I mean, I still have a ton to learn, just like everybody else. And, you know, no matter how much you think you know, there's always more to learn. But I get excited to meet new people that I haven't, you know, like people that have always been a big name in the industry or something like that, and get to talk to them, you know, for a while about what the work they're doing and stuff like that. I don't have like a bucket list. Man, that's kind of making me sad that I don't have I used to, you know, so it was like, oh, I want to meet this guy and that guy and da da da. At this point in my career, I've either talked to or sat down or had dinner with or worked directly with just about everyone I've ever wanted to meet. And sometimes that was a good thing. Sometimes it was a bad thing. But I don't know.
Well, damn. Okay, life fulfilled. You can just die tomorrow. It's okay. Your life is done. You've met everyone. It's done.
No, I haven't met everyone, but like, there's quite a few people in the industry where it's like I've only gotten to hang out with them or talk with them like face to face once or twice. So there, you know, I can think of a few people I wouldn't mind, you know, sitting down and having dinner with again, or having a couple beers and just talking shop. Like Adam Britton, he's doing a lot of croc work out of Australia. Probably one of the leading authorities in the field on crocs at this point. You know, there's luckily one of the biggest influences I've had in this industry is also one of the leaders in the industry as far as behavior and training goes, and just croc stuff in general. And that's Flavio Morrissey. And he does, I mean, just stuff across the board. He consults on Reptile, just anything, you know, mostly institutional related stuff, but, you know, training different things. And so he's got a ton of experience. And then, you know, I've been just really fortunate with being able to sit down with curators and directors of other parks and stuff that have just always been a big name in the industry. And it is kind of like meeting different bands and stuff that you know, it's just kind of like, oh man, I've heard so much about you, blah blah blah, and you try to not geek out on them, you know. And you just kind of be all cool and just be like, well, I'm just not going to talk because, you know. But I don't know.
Do you feel like now
I don't really get starstruck too much, and I don't think I ever did, but I definitely don't anymore. Now it's just like I realize they're just people too. Start a conversation. They usually love talking about it just as much as I do. So that's the fun part, you know. So you find out what they like to drink, and you show up with a bottle of that, and they're just off and running.
Right. Now, do you feel like having a wildlife park, you know, offers you some type of legitimacy as far as it goes, and like, you know, among those folks? I mean, that seems like the pinnacle of what you're hoping for, is the one
you would think, but I knew walking into it, like in some ways, kind of, sort of, yeah, it's like a new tier, you know, and yeah, in some way, but in a lot of the ways, I mean, it's kind of stressful. I mean, not, you know, okay, so getting away from the business and development aspect of it, it's kind of stressful because, you know, on one hand, you get a lot of people who are like, oh man, way to go, that's awesome, yeah, you know, good luck, if you need any help, let us know, you know, blah blah blah. So you get some support on one end, and then you get like really 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 put under a microscope on another end, where everybody's just watching to see. Some people are watching to maybe hope you fail. Some people are watching to see if you follow through on what you've been talking about, or the goals that you set, you know. So in a positive way, they're like, oh, okay, well, once you know, prove this, then you can do this, or we can do this with you, or whatever. So there's a lot of scrutiny there, whether that's good or bad, you know. And then you have another aspect where you know it walking in, and it's like, okay, the second we say we're open to the public, we're going to be like ostracized, and here's, you know, some doors closing, boom 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 boom, and then people kind of turn on you. And that's the only time you really see that is just from sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you get other institutions that are just like, no, it's like competition. There's not enough to go around. Yeah, there's a lot to go around. It's not competition. It's no big deal, you know, but luckily we haven't had a lot of that. I've seen it before with other people and places, but luckily we've had, you know, more support and high fives than bad stuff. So, but it's not, yeah, I don't know. It's, yes, it feels like you kind of reached here, but it's like one of those things, like it's a constant work in progress. So you don't feel like you're ever done, you know? And it's like, oh, okay, well, we got to this point. And it's, you almost have to take a step back and say, okay, so I don't feel like we're at where we're at yet or where we should be. Except if I take a step back and look at 5 years ago, it's like, I didn't have any of this.
Right.
And it's all way ahead of where I wanted to be, you know? So then you have to put yourself in check a little bit. And I think you have to kind of humble yourself a little bit too, and be happy with what you have.
To uncheck yourself. Where do you want to go in the future? Kind of what's your ideal steps going forward?
Ideal, like going forward, you know, I mean, it's, some of that's kind of boring, you know, so like we want to expand in kind of the normal ways, get like a nice, good, like front entry area and kind of build that up, you know, expand the parking area. The most fun that I want to have, or it's going to be fun for me, is like our property here. So I was saying we have 10 acres total, and we're not even using half of it yet. It's all pretty untouched, like Florida wilderness. So it's not already just, you know, open and stuff. It's just jungle. So I don't want to develop any of it. At best, I want to put maybe like a raised boardwalk through the whole thing and just kind of map out how that's going to go. And then just lots of natural enclosures and just kind of use the landscape for that. And I think that'll be the funnest part, is once we get to that point. And then it's like a 8-acre facility rather than a 3-acre thing or something, you know, or whatever. So, but hopefully, I mean, if business keeps going as well as it is, and I think we've been pretty lucky so far, we might be there in the next 3 to 5 years, you know, exactly where we want to be. And then, yeah. So
8 acres is like your max. That's like what?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like, so if you have 10 acres total and then I mean, it's me just speculating. But you know, if you have, you know, if you're looking at like a 30-car parking lot or 50-car parking lot, that's probably going to be about you know, almost a whole acre.
Right.
You know, and then, you know, like back areas, like off exhibit holding areas or staff areas, you know, that might be, yeah. So, I mean, realistically, we could probably utilize about 8 acres of like guest area, maybe, you know, or less. But shoot, man, I've seen some pretty phenomenal zoos and parks on about that or less. And just if they use the space right, man, that place, they look huge, you know, and it's just beautiful too. So, I mean, it's like, it's all a matter of how you map it out, I think, is really the trick.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool that, like, I mean, you go to a lot of places and obviously it's bulldozed, perfectly flat. You have these enclosures, but like you trying to work within the landscape and keeping, you know, some of it wild. And I'm sure that creates a lot of headaches, but it will also create an awesome experience for people who are coming from outside of Florida. I'm assuming that a lot of your visitors are from out of state or tourists, right?
Yeah, yeah, we do tap into the tourism industry for Central Florida pretty well. We do have a lot of local stuff though. I mean, I think we have, one of the things we lucked out on is there isn't a lot going on this side of our county. So we're only like maybe 30 minutes from Daytona, but that's on the opposite side of the county. So on East Volusia, and it's Volusia County where we're at, that's where Daytona is. So that's the hot spot. That's where all the tourism goes, over there. So there's nothing here. But on one hand, we're not far enough away from Orlando to be we're far enough away from Orlando to not get all like muffled in all the chaos going on there. but we're close enough to not be ignored. You know, people from that region can still, oh, they still hear about us and they can still come. So we do get a little bit of that. And I think as time goes on, it'll be, you know, probably 90% of our guests would probably be, vacationers and out of towners. But I think we'll still get quite a few locals and Florida residents too. So
from a business aspect, what kind of marketing and advertising have you had to do for the park?
I like free marketing and advertising. That is the best kind. Mainly because we don't have the budget for it right now, but luckily that's working out really, really well. So, I mean, pretty much just Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Google. We have a pretty good footprint on Google at this point, and then that's growing. You know, if we just, if you know how it works, if you stay active on social media too, that creates a buzz and that keeps it going. You know, we're trying very unsuccessfully to build our YouTube presence, and it's not working, but we're good on Facebook.
Well, I think it's interesting
to put more stuff on YouTube, but
you got to be consistent, which is hard because it takes up so much time and you're busy with all the animals. And then it's like, I mean, as the first thing I'm doing, if I'm traveling to Florida and 80% of people who just show up in Florida, like, I want to see a gator, that's why people, maybe I'm biased. Maybe I'm very biased, but I would be
have you ever heard of Disney World?
No, I know. But
I mean, there's three things that people want to see in Florida, and it's Mickey Mouse, alligators, and oranges.
There you go.
You know, they went, or the beach, but I mean, that's what people think of, the beach, Mickey Mouse, alligators, sometimes oranges.
I don't think oranges, but I definitely think the beach.
It used to be. Oranges used to be a big deal. But the beach, Mickey Mouse, and alligators, that's pretty much the big
But draw. If you're Joe's friend, alligators come way before Mickey Mouse and the beach.
But people are out there.
Same with me. I mean,
in alligators. I mean, and then you come
in alligators.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. Our mascot can eat their mascot, so there's really no competition.
Alligators, and then Mickey Mouse in the beach.
Mickey Mouse is a fad.
Very, very popular one.
Yes, he is, but really a trend. Everybody loves him.
Now,
I will give you, if you ever start doing school stuff, like, I don't know if you guys already do that or not, where you go out to schools and stuff, don't make the mistake of, with the kindergartners and younger, of ever realizing that you're good at doing a Mickey Mouse voice, because then you have to do the rest of your presentation as Mickey Mouse. Speaking of Mickey Mouse.
Well, now I gotta hear your Mickey Mouse voice.
Well, shoot, I don't know. I've been drinking. It might not be appropriate.
A drunk Mickey Mouse is okay.
It's all with a laugh, really. It's just like, ha, hi, how's it going? Well, hot dog, that's a hefty drink you got going on there.
That is a really good Mickey Mouse.
Booze there, lady. Yeah, it's not bad. But you know what's awesome is it's just a slight, like a little sandy throat off of Gingy from Shrek.
Yes.
You know the
and also a slightly off of the creepy old man from Family Guy.
Yes.
No, he's got too much of a lisp. That's just
that's true.
Way out. Because that's kind of like the look at that sweet.
Why do you say it like that?
Yeah, well, it's not. Mickey's high. Mickey and Gingy, like, spark up the ovens, muffin man. We got a big order. He's got that gurgle in the throat, Gingy.
Yeah. So what
was your question, babe? About 80% alligators.
Yeah, it's just like, of course people are gonna go down there looking to see alligators. I mean, what's kind of the experience people are looking for? What would you bring, a first time visitor through as far as what can they expect to see at the park?
Well, one thing that we kind of do is we do kind of act as like unofficial tour guides, so we can kind of show them around, and anytime we see something that we think is cool, we, point it out to them or drag them over there. But, for the most part, I mean, it's kind of easy because everybody just wants to see an alligator at first. And there's so many different like eco tour related stuff, like airboat rides or whatever. So We've even connected with quite a few of those locally. So, let's say the river tour goes out, an airboat ride, and it was cooler. And they're like, well, we didn't get to see any wild alligators today, place, because you're definitely going to see them over there. So they send them to us. And then, so they're already thrilled that they get to see this big giant thing. Now, if you can make it move, then they're like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. And that doesn't take much sometimes. Sometimes, I can just kind of walk in and just be like, hey, Trapper, come here, buddy. And he perks up and lifts his head and moves around, deep breath of air. And they're like, wow, it's not a statue, and so people are kind of blown away. You don't have to do a lot.
Yeah, I think people are really entertained by these animals.
Yeah, but it just sometimes and I was kind of talking about it before as one of the byproducts of just doing training with them. They don't shy away, so they're not hiding way in the back of the enclosures. They're staying active, whether that's swimming around or walking around or whatever. And people see that quite a bit. So I love seeing alligators and crocodiles just walking, just doing that high walk. They stand up all big, and it's just this dinosaur thing coming crawling. It's not going fast. It's like 1.5 miles an hour, and it's just the coolest thing ever. And then they just kind of stop and rest, or once in a while they just kind of do this weird awkward stand where they lower their head and their butt's way up in the air, and then all of a sudden they poop all over the place, and kids scream, and that's hilarious. It's like, well, you don't see that every day. Check that out. But we try to do, we don't want to be any more invasive on the animal. So, we don't really do a whole lot to get in the way, but like I get in there, I want them to feel comfortable, but I get in and interact with them quite a bit anyway. So believe it or not, the craziest reaction I ever got in the entertainment side of the industry wasn't when we were doing shows with them and get them to jump out of the water, or a crocodile standing up taking chicken out of my hand. It was going into an enclosure to do mundane tasks, and people were like, oh my gosh, aren't you terrified? Oh shoot, what had just happened there?
Yes, like people are surprised. Yeah, we just can't see you.
Yeah, it happened. That went to some different screen.
But I think people are surprised that you could ever be calm around these animals and, just do what you got to do.
For fun, one time I went and took a nap in a crocodile enclosure.
Oh, Nathan, no.
Well, I didn't really go to sleep. I was just pretending. But I'm just sitting over there, and I knew some people were walking by, and they didn't know I was in there. But there was like this hammock. We had this like camping themed setup thing in the croc enclosure, and the croc's sitting on the one side. He's just sitting in the sun. And I kind of go over there, and I kind of sort of I'm laying like kind of next to the hammock as part of the little themed campsite thing. And the people walk by, and they're like, oh, look, that's funny, and blah, blah, blah. And then I woke up like, oh, hey, how you guys doing today? Shoot. Oh, didn't mean to doze off. And they're like, oh, my God, you're crazy. And then the croc just all of a sudden, like, I guess when I jumped up, it spooked him, and he was like, boosh, and took off into the water. And I'm like, I can't believe you were just sleeping in there. And so that was just a nice little funny little practical joke on the guest.
I'd lose my mind.
Yeah, they kind of did. I also learned something on the back end of that too, that we used to have a mannequin in the hammock. And after that day, like, we came in the next morning and the whole display was destroyed. The croc came up and destroyed, like, grabbed the mannequin in the hammock and like ripped it through the trees and just like demolished it. This was like a Ford crocodile.
Do you think that's because it like had your scent on it, or?
No, I think it's because he was mad at me that I did that and got one over on him. And I think he was kind of like, well, I'll show you, stupid human, and he just decided, okay, well, it's there. I'm going to destroy it now.
Right.
He might have, I'm pretty sure he knew I wasn't in it. But, I don't know.
At least you like to tell yourself that.
I can make up whatever story I want about what he was thinking, because nobody else knows what he was thinking either,
Right.
Speaking of the public and like audience members, what are some of the most ridiculous questions or why can I say that? Wives tales you've heard from the public?
The most wives' tales I've heard from the
or questions.
public? Oh man. Now I'm trying to think of like ridiculous ones, but I mean, some of them are all pretty. I mean, there's the classic go-to misinformation stuff, like, and I hear it all the time, and I don't think I'll ever not hear it. But there's a lot of people that still think, okay, if you're getting chased by a crocodile or an alligator, you got to run from them. That's like the most common one, and they're like, "Is that true?" And I'm like, "No, it's not. Don't ever do that." The only time you should ever run zigzag, well, you shouldn't. But if you're at a company party, get like a boss or a relative that you don't like, and get them to do it, and then videotape it, because you're just gonna look ridiculous, and it's funny. But it's just a misconception. I think like 100-something years ago, they don't look flexible, so maybe they can't run an erratic pattern. The problem with that logic is that the only life form on the planet that will ever run that way is a sick and injured animal. So what's a predator going to do but think, oh, you're going to die in a second. Let me keep following you a little faster now. So plus you're just going to cut off you're going to, so if you're just trying to get to a tree, just run to the fucking tree.
Right.
Hide behind the tree. Just run. They can't run faster than us anyway. So that's another problem with TV is like, top speed on land for any alligator or crocodile is likely right around maybe 10, maybe our tops on land. TV, they'll say like 20 miles an hour. They can outrun a horse for short distances. Nope.
Good to know.
I mean, your average fit human should be able to outrun a croc in an ideal situation.
I can outrun the fastest crocodile species on the planet, not just one, but a group of them backwards. I've done it backwards. I'm not showing off. I'm not that graceful or fast. But I know for a fact, I think you could probably, in the right conditions, I think a brisk mall walk would do it. You remember mall walking?
Nope.
The old ladies that walk really fast in the mall to get their exercise.
Yes.
That I think you could briskly like just fast walk, Monty Python style, and I don't know, just run. If it's chasing you, run. Hide behind a tree.
I was always wondering because like we went to
trip the person you're with and walk.
Yeah, right. The slowest person. They'll get them. But
are you about to reference your New Orleans trip?
Yeah. We
did that every year growing up.
We went to Louisiana and like.
Let me say that mine first. I'm from New Orleans, and he went one time and went on my like swamp boat tour that we took like every year growing up, and they're so dumb. That is all antics.
Well, I'm wondering, I
didn't believe like half the shit they used to tell
us. Dude, we had a raccoon. We had like 3 gators that were just like jumping up,
and they let you hold them.
Around.
No tape around the mouth usually, which is like terrifying to me. But yeah,
I mean, what is that doing as far as behavior wise to a wild alligator? On those kind of touristy feed the alligators type of airboat trips.
Well, I mean, if they're just snatching up some wild alligator for people to hold, it's like me just kidnapping you and making you do a photo op with random things on it. It's doing exactly what it looks like it's doing. I mean, if you're not, if they don't know what's going on, eventually they'll get desensitized to it. But it's the same thing as like, if you were to kidnap somebody and then basically just break them over time, they're going to submit. They're not starved to death or killed or whatever the case is. They don't know what the back end of the deal is. So, I mean, if they're feeding them out in the wild, then they're just, you're making it lose its fear of humans, which could make it dangerous for other humans. So, it's normally an animal that's afraid of us to begin with. So without actually kind of training and communicating, this is why we're doing this, then how are they going to know other than to just be like, I'm I'm in fear the whole time, or, oh, okay, people aren't bad, they're going to feed me, let me go eat their dog now, type of thing. So, and then you have accidents happen.
Yeah, I felt like the
in Florida, all of that stuff's completely illegal. You can't go and, like, on an airboat ride, if you feed an alligator in the wild, you're going to jail. So in Louisiana, the laws might be a little different. They might be allowed to do that. I don't know.
We're called loose Louisiana. We got a lot of loose laws.
So, and Texas is the same way. There's a lot of leeway on what you can and can't do with certain wildlife. So that's that. Like we do. Okay, so pretty much, I think any facility that has captive alligators does the little photo op thing, with an alligator. But the group of animals that we choose from for that, we train the crap out of them. And it's not like, hey, you're going to do this. You're going to wear the chicken suit and twist a sign. And that's what you do. But they know they're working. They know they're not in a dangerous situation. So it's not like we just grab them, put the tape on, and there you go, and you figure it out. We kind of work with them a little bit. We're not trying to tame them, but it's like, look, this is not a threatening situation. Nothing's going to hurt you. We're going to take you to, even though all the kindergartners in the classroom are screaming and crazy, it's not a bad thing, and then they get rewarded for all of that. So as soon as, the restraint for the mouth goes on, they know, oh, okay, basically now after doing the training part of it, they know that basically that's like a uniform. And as soon as it comes off, they go to a specific spot and they wait for their paycheck, so you can make it very clear, hey, that's what is going on. So in that way, it can be a positive thing for the animal. In the same way that, okay, it's like, if I have a normal job, like welding, like I didn't want to do that forever, but I did enjoy it, from an artistic perspective. It's like, so, I enjoyed it a little bit. Did I want to do it all the time? No. But it wasn't like a bad thing. It's like, okay, well, I'll go to work today. I'm getting paid, but if you have a place that isn't doing it like that, and it is just a snatch and grab situation, then yeah, I think it's going to put undue stress on the animal, at least for a little while. And then it'll eventually realize, oh, okay, well, this isn't going to hurt me. And I am getting, but it's almost kind of like if I just grabbed you at 2:00 in the morning, threw a chicken suit on you, and you were just standing on the corner, you're like, what the heck was that? It was the worst dream ever. But if I just handed you a bag full of $100 bills at the same time, you'd be like, this sucks, but this is cool. And okay, sounds good, and then you eventually just on board,
Right.
I don't know. That's the worst analogy I've ever done, but
we got it.
What are the signs of a distressed gator, or what's the signs of
the musking?
I mean,
distressed, food aggressive, defensive, whatever it may be.
No, vocalize. They communicate. They talk. They'll tell you. Once you learn the body language and the vocalizations, and you know how to read the eyes and all that stuff put together. Fuck you, or this is cool. So you can tell. Just off the breathing alone, the way if they're tensing up on the muscles, what the ears are doing, what the eyes are doing. Sometimes the alligators and crocs will talk, like they will vocalize. The musk glands, those things sticking out right there. If the head's all up like this and that's out there and they're all tight and rigid, that's a sign that, like, I would kill you so hard right now if I could. It's kind of what it's saying. It's a little bit. Some of them are really subtle, and some of them are really loud. Metaphorically speaking. So yeah, it's just the more I can see it plain as day now, but 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was kind of like, it took a little while for me to see it because I was still learning. But it's the same with snakes or lizards or anything else. You can see the sign. The more you're around them, the more you work with them, you can see, oh, I see what this means, and yeah, I guess that's it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Speaking of that,
I know. I was going to say, people are going to be remiss if we don't mention other animals.
Ask what your other animal interests are.
I've always been like, crocs and alligator. That was always like my big thing. I'm a croc guy through and through, but like tortoises were the opposite side of the spectrum for me. So it was kind of like I always had like tortoises. So even when I was just working someplace and I didn't have, I was working all day with the crocs, it was crazy. I would come home to my tortoises and just kind of sit there and just gel out and just feed them. And that was kind of my downtime, and then it's a big one for me too. I'd say they're right up there with, I don't know if they're right up there with crocs. Like water monitors, I like a lot, and it was funny because you mentioned Dorian before, and he was like, I hate water monitors, but he likes them a little bit, but he's real big into the ornates or whatever. And
the water monitors are just like the nicer, bigger versions of what he keeps. I don't see what's bad about them.
I like them. I like them a lot just because they're the closest thing to a Komodo dragon without being a Komodo dragon. Like I would love to have a Komodo dragon. I'd love to work with those more. I had the privilege of kind of socially working with them for, not very long, but they're amazing and they're huge. And I think I just like that they're this giant bulldog dragon thing. And it's just super cool. Working with water monitors, and they're smart as hell too, and they're fun to work with on that aspect. And then just watching them, I love watching them just be lizards, so that stuff's pretty cool.
Do they do well as far as monitor species outside in Florida where you are?
In my experience, yeah. That's one of those things where the more we talk about it, we probably get in some pretty hot water and some of the groups and all that good stuff.
The more and more we talk to monitor people, the more weird it seems as far as the clickiness.
Just with everything. If we started talking too much about any particular species, we could get ourselves into some pretty hot water. No, that's not true. I don't agree, and blah blah blah. And it's like, well, so what? Who cares? I'll do it my way. You do it your way. Who gives a shit? Right. But the way that I work with my monitors here might not be exactly the way that everybody else says it's supposed to be done. And I know what works for me and what works for my lizards that are here. What works with them and for them might not work with other lizards. And I know that. And I've worked with lots of other ones, so it's like they just happen to be perfect with each other in the way they are. And it's awesome. But I think if you do it the right way, Florida is really, really good. South Florida is probably better because it's way closer to just point blank tropical weather. We do get a little cooler up here, so it's a little tricky. You could almost kind of look at it like the iguanas do just fine down in South Florida, even though it gets pretty cold down there sometimes. But they've learned to stay in the water and underground through the winter, and they survive. This far north, it would get too cold. So wild iguanas, I don't think could ever last, and wild monitors, maybe the same thing. I don't know if they could ever make it through the winter without help. But you can still, we keep ours outdoors. They're in the enclosure all year. We just supply extra heat just to make sure. And then the only time they ever come out of there or go anywhere else is if a hurricane comes through. And it's like, yeah, here, you can come into the barn, or you can go over here, or wherever. So,
is it similar to, as far as training goes? Is it a similar approach with the monitors as it is for your crocs?
Just training in general. The basics of it, the fundamentals of it, are all pretty much the same. But I don't stay the same. That's one of those things that I think you really need to adapt more. I think there are some old school trainers that think it has to be, it's like textbook. This is A, B, C, D, all the way through with everything from like a psychology 101 standpoint. Yeah, kind of. Maybe that could work, but I kind of train per individual. So once we kind of get the groundwork going, and then you can see the personality, I'll kind of work with that a little bit more than I will with the structured textbook version of it. But yeah, ultimately, yeah, the same techniques I use with them that I use with the crocs.
And now are waters the only species that you're working with monitor wise?
Right now, yes. That's all. Yeah, that's what we have here right now. So I mean, I've done that with like croc monitors, and I've had lots of different, like the blue tails and the mangrove monitors and the Niles and all that type of stuff. I've worked with all those in the past, but right now, yeah, we're not. I would like to expand the monitor collection a little bit, as we get a few new kind of habitats developed and built up a little bit. We'll probably do that. Right now we're focusing more on just having a decent representation of as many groups as we can, so we have an iguana representation, the monitor representation, maybe we'll throw a tegu in there, or I'd love to get those like the caiman lizards.
Mm-hmm.
Those things, those freaking cool looking little crocodile lizards.
Yeah, you gotta mention snails. They only eat snails, I believe.
We have a lot of snails.
Yeah, I'm sure that wouldn't be a problem for you. Up here, yeah, we'd be fucked. Yeah,
we'll just grow some snails. We could do it. It's fine.
Yeah, those are awesome. And I think they've only been bred once in the U.S., from my understanding, as far as captive breeding goes.
Isn't it good? Because isn't there there's the crocodile? Well, there's the crocodile skink, and then there's the caiman lizard. I thought the caiman lizard. Oh, I guess they are all imports, aren't they?
Yeah. From my understanding, I know at least someone in Europe did it. I want to say someone in the United States bred them, but yeah, I think your best bet would be probably keeping them outside in Florida, eating snails and hanging out. And who knows, if you got lucky, they'd breed if they didn't want. But,
yeah. Well, I think they'd have a pretty good shot at it here. I mean, especially because all I'm going to do is replicate where they came from anyway.
Right.
And just kind of leave them to it,
Yeah, I mean, that's an animal that, I've seen some pretty calm individuals as far as, people being able to handle them.
Anyone that I've ever worked with was pretty mellow. You know what I really like? And I was talking to somebody about it the other day, and I really want to do it, but it'll be tricky climate-wise here, is Uromastyx. I used to love working with Uromastyx, like the Egyptians, the Egypticus or Gyptius or whatever the stupid scientific name is, but those things are awesome. It's like a tortoise head on a lizard body with like armored beaver tail thing. Right?
You just got to keep it 1,000,000 degrees with 0 humidity, and you'll be fine in Florida.
Yeah. Well, that would be the tricky part. Yeah. But that would be cool. Like, just have a bunch of big, giant, versions of that. I always thought those were pretty neat. I always liked the way they use the tail to like protect themselves in the burrow and just slap your hand into the rock and stuff. They used to try and hurt me a lot. But,
yeah, those are awesome animals. And now I guess we got to mention snakes, because you did mention snakes. What species?
I'm assuming he hasn't kept any. He skipped right past them. He said tortoises, lizards.
No, we do. Like right now, the way that we're set up right now, like I intermittently will have snakes here. We have a ton of snakes on property. Just wild stuff, nothing crazy, but we'll see some rat snakes once in a while and some really cool looking water snakes. But on exhibit right now, today, we don't have any on exhibit. Last week, I had a python, and like before that, we had a whole cool little boa set up and all that stuff. But I don't like what we have for them, so I don't want to have them yet, if that makes sense. So once we develop, there's a whole different section. And again, I wish I could show it to you right now, but I want to redevelop that whole set of enclosures to be specific for way better for snakes, or a small frog exhibit, or have a bunch of different species like that. But I've done tons of work with snakes. I wouldn't call myself a snake guy. I like them. I like watching them. But from an exhibit standpoint, snakes are the worst exhibit animals in the world.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, think about it. They're super efficient with what they do, so you can't really knock them for that. But if you give them this big, huge, spacious, awesome thing, they're not necessarily gonna. I don't want to say they're not going to appreciate it, but they're going to find the spot they love the most
and hide
they
behind
feel secure, safe, and they're going to just hunker down right there. Never really going to see active wise is when they got to poop, eat, or drink some water, you know, and that's pretty much it. So you can do things to, you know, kind of keep the environment a lot more do a lot of enrichment with them and stuff like that. You know, for the most part, until we get something that's a little bit more conducive for the way I see it. Like right now, I mean, it's all outdoor enclosures. They are set up, but they would be good for snakes, but I just don't like possible thing in my opinion. So once I feel good with it, then we'll get some more snakes in there. But
yeah, I think that's interesting. Like the more you set it up, the more enrichment you give them, the more areas you give them to hide, which they like, you know, the less people are going to see them. So it's almost like the more you take care of them well, the less people are going to see them, pretty much, no matter what.
Yeah, the better you make it. You almost have to make it like the worst thing for them, so that they're just out in the open, constantly searching for a place to go. You know, and it's like, wait a second, that's completely not cool. You know, so the hardest thing is just finding that fine line between what's best for the animal and still conducive for like public viewing or something like that.
A chondro would be the way to go.
Get you a scrub or something.
No, a chondro that sits there on its perch.
I don't know how good it would do in Florida.
Oh, you know what I always wanted to do? I always wanted to do like an open air, like tree boa or tree python type exhibit.
See,
I hate to plug them, but Mandalay Bay out in Vegas has that. Like, it's like a tree. It's not really all that. I mean, it's kind of neat, but it's not how I would say, because they were just, you couldn't reach them or anything, but it was open air. It wasn't like a big cage thing. They're just sitting there on a perch, just chilling. You know, it's pretty neat.
Should do it.
They probably need to replace them like every 3 months, but I mean, whatever.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the other problem too, is if we wouldn't be able to do an open air thing like that, and you know, not with some smaller species like that, because we do have, again, like some native wildlife. So we do have hawks and owls and stuff like that. So, I mean, if something's just accessible, then it's going to get picked off. Yeah. Or it could. So
yeah, I think that would be a real difficult thing, to keep the snake in and keep everything else out.
But while showing it off well.
Yeah.
I will let you in on a little secret. I tried out this, I had one chameleon. I went down to South Florida and caught one of those, you know, big, whatever what are they? The Jacksons? No, not the Jacksons. It was
they're veileds, right, in Florida?
Well, they have the veiled or whatever, and then they have there's a bunch of different types down there. But what's the big, huge one? Dang it! Why can't I remember the name?
I'm gonna Google big, huge chameleon for you.
I know
it's not the panther. It's the other one. They're not super crazy colorful. Chameleon. It's oh man, it's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, whatever. You know, they're already. Somebody eavesdropping will be yelling it at us right now through a message. Be like, it's a flob.
Parsons.
No, it's not
not Parsons.
Way to go, chat. Letting us down.
No, it's not one of the really common ones.
Is it base of them, obviously?
It's the one, because they're not very colorful. They do change, you know, a bit, and it is big and it's impressive, almost like the panther. But the panther, I mean, those things are awesome with the colors and stuff. But yeah, it's invasive. They're down there. But anyway, the thing was only, you know, maybe this big, you know, and I had this really cool open air, had this weird shrubby tree thing inside one of the enclosures, and that was going to be our tortoise nursery enclosure. So you'd have the tortoises running around, a little kind of stream pond thing with some pond turtles, and then you'd have this tree right in the middle of it, all Lion King style, and with some chameleons all hanging out in it. And then it had this, you know, it came down into this tub with these real slick kind of walls that you couldn't quite see. So if they did come down to the ground, they couldn't climb out. So I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So I put the chameleon out there, and, you know, I come back in the morning and I'm like, where the heck did the chameleon go? How the heck did he get out? Where'd he go? You know, and I was like, he couldn't get out of the main enclosure because the holes were, only like maybe barely an inch. So he wasn't getting out. I'm like, where the heck is this chameleon? I look off in the back, and there's a rat snake that could fit through the holes, ate the damn chameleon, and then couldn't fit out the holes again.
Because he was so fat.
Because the chameleon was too big. Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Like stuck in there. And I'm like, God dang it. So it was like one of those little tiny oversight things where it's like a good plan gone wrong, and we just did not, for whatever reason, I don't know why I didn't think that a rat snake might not take a shot at it, but
that's funny.
Anyway.
Okay, so the chat gave options. Could it be Murphy's? Could it be Mueller's?
No.
Or
Ostolets.
Ostolets, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, the Ostoleti. That's it. Ostolets, yeah.
Cool. Thanks, chat.
We got it.
Thanks, man.
They're personal Googlers.
Right.
But I mean, that's great. I mean, there's so many things as far as native wildlife that could go wrong, especially as far as snakes, especially rat snakes. I mean, we'll eat just about anything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they will. It's neat to see them around the park, though, too. And once in a while, I have a little heartbreak moment when it's like, oh, man, look at that cool water snake. And then one of the crocs is like, oh, look at that cool water snake. And, it's like, damn it. Should have tried to catch that cool water snake.
So have you tried to, I know I've seen a lot of people as far as crocs and stuff. I mean, you kind of mentioned you have turtles that kind of cohab, and do you have turtle species with monitor species, or, turtles with the crocs and stuff like that? Are they all native? Or are they special aquatic turtles? Or
there are some so in some of the croc ponds, there are some turtles. I try to keep any of the water there, and they're basically native to Florida. And some of them were already here when we got here. They probably just walked out of a marsh somewhere and got into the ponds or something. But anytime I find turtles in some of the ponds, I'll dive in real quick and snatch them up and stick them in a different one. Pretty much the only ponds that have turtles in them are with crocs that don't normally eat turtles, because I don't want to just feed the turtles to the crocs and stuff. So when we first moved Trapper into his enclosure, I didn't really know if there was turtles or fish or anything in the ponds at that point. I hadn't seen anything. But then within the first week, you start seeing stuff walking the fence line. Like, oh my gosh, there's this giant dinosaur. And it's like, oh, come here, little turtle. I'll save you before he gets you, and so anytime we see them, and especially like in his enclosure or something, because alligators, I mean, they're designed to eat turtles. That's why they have that big, broad head. They're just really efficient turtle eaters. So, I love mixed exhibits, though. I mean, when you can do multi-species exhibits, it's, you got to put them together, but yeah, it's awesome. I think if you have the opportunity to do it, I want to do, like, for our future iguanas are in kind of what I consider a temporary holding exhibit, and then once we get the bigger one finished up, I want that to double as like a tortoise and turtle nursery with the iguanas. So you have the iguanas in there with some, like, yearling tortoises, redfoot or yellowfoot tortoises or something like that. So there's more than just the iggies flopping around in there. I think that'll be neat. But
is there any, as far as, fish and go food wise, I mean, are you trying to keep fish in the ponds? Do you even care? Or, do you kind of grow some of your own food that way?
Yeah. Apparently I suck as a gardener. We have this whole big section that I just, while I'm showing guests around, I'm like, oh, and this right here is my sad attempt at a vegetable garden. So don't pay attention to that because I'm failing. We try, I grow some stuff, but yeah, I'm currently like restocking all the ponds with fish, mostly like bluegill or shiners, that type of thing. And I'm feeling it out. It's one of those things where it's like an aquarium. Like if you put too many of something in there, then they can't survive or compete or whatever. So, it's a matter of finding the balance, like what you can put in there. I'd love to get catfish in some of the ponds, but we have, the way I have some of the stuff plumbed, some of these enclosures for like the juvenile crocodiles, they're higher up than the main ponds, the bigger ponds. So their overflows spill out intentionally into the bigger ponds, or not directly the bigger ponds, but like one area, so we can use that nutrient rich water as irrigation for a lot of our plants or vegetables or fruit trees or anything that we're trying to grow. And at the same time, that'll eventually trickle into the bigger pond. Fish in some of those smaller croc exhibits like bluegill and the shiners, and it looks like at least in one of them that they might actually be spawning in there. So theoretically the fry from those fish will go over the overflows and then populate the ponds. So we're trying that as an experiment just to see if that'll, because if that works, that'd be neat. That'd be kind of cool. But
now is that just kind of always, is that just kind of enrichment at that point? I mean, because they're eating them, but are you hoping that they kind of get to display a little bit of their behavior?
Yeah. So I mean, anytime they're supplementing their own diet and they're just catching frogs or fish or the random raccoon that tromps by, that, I mean, it's dietary, but yeah, that is definitely enrichment. And it's awesome to see that. And the guests, I mean, it's awesome for guests to see that behavior too. And whether it's graphic or not to whatever individual happens to be watching it, I mean, that's, it's in the eye of the beholder, but okay, so it's awesome. We do a lot of enrichment with them anyway, with other stuff, mainly to keep them active and stuff like that. But it is really cool when you do see them. There are a couple that actively hunt the frogs and come up with different strategies on how to catch the bullfrogs, and it's neat to watch it, and to see it play out. So
is there communication between gators as far as if they're trying to hunt, they'll kind of help each other out?
Yeah, like a tap, tap, tip, tap, tap. They speak more.
No,
gators?
It's all like with walkie-talkies.
Of course.
Made out of sticks.
Yes. They
They
wrapped it together.
They use cups with strings at least.
No, one will hold a stick and another one will toss stones at the stick, and that's so it's kind of this weird primitive Morse code.
Hey, you fuck! Do they help you catch food or not? Not making fun
cooperative. There is cooperative hunting behavior. Not so much with small stuff like that, at least that I've seen, but with bigger prey items. And alligators, it kind of sort of comes and goes. It's a lot like kids fighting over a ball on a playground, more than it's really cooperative.
Story of my life.
But with other species, what?
Sorry.
She has a fly. A fly just flew in her wine. She's picking it out, which is very distracting.
Oh, but I was also
just protein.
I was referring to what he said about teaching or about kids with a ball on a playground. That's my life currently.
But you're also scooping a fruit fly out of your wine.
You weren't supposed to focus on that. You're supposed to focus.
Take a dry finger and just go boop and just hit it, and it'll stick.
What I've been doing for the past couple minutes.
It's kind of like a raccoon stumbles into the enclosure. You just gotta eat that shit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But no, sorry. I'm a teacher, and so the whole playground kid reference is my life.
Yeah, it works really well when talking about animals, even though it really pisses people off when you relate kids to animals.
They're so close to animals.
Even though we're animals. I mean,
True.
I don't want to really blow anybody's mind here, but we are an animal species that exists on the planet.
My children are very close to dogs.
You should probably not do that.
They are. They eat off the ground. They lick their butts. They're so close.
I have not ever seen one person able to lick their own butt. That's an expression.
That was hyperbolic of me to say. They do actually eat off the floor.
So I think it gives me license to validate that. Yeah, I think all of our little kids are tiny little primates.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shit throwing little primates.
Yep. See, they throw shit. They eat anything.
Yep.
They make weird noises. They pick in each other's hair. I have seen that. Other kids going up and literally just like picking and little chip. Totally.
All right, getting back on topic. You work on the bug there. No, there is cooperative hunting behavior though. You see it a lot with like Cuban crocodiles are famous for it. I mean, they pretty much pack hunt, so they will work together too. Are you just dumping it out now?
No, he took it away from me. He literally just took it away and put it on the other side of the desk.
The bottle.
She has a goal. You just have to reinforce the behavior once she gets the bug out.
He's too ADD and I'm distracting him. That's what the issue is. And I don't even know if it's a fly.
That's not even a fucking
fly,
it's something
dude.
Black. That's just a random piece of
something I don't want to drink. But it's
an eyelash.
He's too ADD and he can't focus on you and also have me sitting here doing this.
Anyone can. Get out of
here. No one's watching me. They're watching him. He's talking. Shh. Okay.
I was
all right. Everyone, shh. Cooperative behavior. We've been trying to get to this for about 15 minutes.
I always enjoy watching people try to do problem-solving tasks. Fun.
This is like, it's like watching the first chimpanzees use tools, watching her trying to get this, whatever this object is.
This is a whole side discussion thing.
Yeah, it's becoming its own thing.
It was not supposed to. Stop bringing it up and just.
It gets sadder and sadder, and the more you do it.
Is anybody even watching us anymore?
I don't know. I hope not at this point. I mean, it's really gone downhill.
God. Okay.
Fuck, man. So
I'm getting ready to crack open beer number 3, so it could start getting wild here.
So, fuck, man. I had a question. Something about alligators. I'm sure it'll come back.
Sure, it wasn't about children.
Yeah, so
there are lots of questions about alligators.
Do your kids help out a lot at the park?
Yeah, as much as they can. I mean, my oldest is 7, my youngest is 5, and they once in a while they jump in and want to help out. They like raking the tortoise pens, which is kind of awesome, so they'll rake up we try to compost a lot, so they'll rake up all the leaves and make little compost piles, and then they'll go and mess up the compost piles and pick out all the tree seeds that fall down and bury them like squirrels everywhere, and so I don't know as much productive good around the park but I mean, they're trying and they do like to do stuff, but
do they show that interest?
Oh yeah. Hopefully that'll carry into the future, and like at least one of them might. That's the one thing I kind of worry about is like when I was a kid, like me now, it's like, man, I wish I had this when I was a kid. So like I'm envious of them, because they get to grow up in and around this. But then the question is, are they going to get jaded to it? So by the time they're an adult, is that excitement and passion still going to be there? Or are they just going to be like, nah, whatever, crocodile, schmockodile. I want to go be an accountant or something,
Yeah, because it's like,
we'll see. I mean, right now they live in their own Jurassic Park and they love it to death. So that's awesome. They can love it for as long as they want to love it. And there you go. So
at the very least, they're going to like go on in their adult life being like, yeah, I grew up on an alligator farm. And that is like the coolest
That's
thing.
still pretty darn cool.
Yeah, so it's like
somebody will be like, "Oh, have you ever seen Jurassic Park? Oh, look this, it's all retro because they'll be old and we'll all be old and dead by then."
I lived
this is like way into the future with like flying cars and stuff, And they'll be like getting married and having kids, and they'll be grandparents, and they'll be like, "Hey, Grandma, you ever see that old movie?" And she'll be like, "Yeah, I used to live in Jurassic Park when I was a little girl." I remember when gas only cost $1.
But that is like, yeah, that's a once, a one of a kind experience to be someone who grows up in a place like that. That's just an experience that very few people are ever going to have.
Very normal, for sure.
Oh, totally. But for someone who doesn't live in Florida, it seems not that out of the ordinary. But I also have total stereotypes against Florida, and I think a lot of the America does. I fully admit that I do, but
you think
everybody outside of Florida thinks that Floridians like ride alligators to work, and
I don't like that. But I think in my head,
they
every
do meth
Florida,
most days.
Yeah, like we don't have water skis in Florida. We ride on the backs of alligators, being towed behind boats and stuff, and it's.
I think most Floridians have had more contact with alligators than the.
I don't know about most, but yeah, the exposure is there, and but yeah, I don't know. Stereotypes, that's the thing about stereotypes. Whether they're good or bad, they're, based with some kind of sort of trickle of like reality. It's basically like comedy. Behind every joke is a little bit of truth. So, it's like whatever perceptions you have of Floridians, it's based somewhat in a little bit of,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, everybody has exposure to it. I mean, there's alligators everywhere. So you have to, even if you try your whole entire life in the state of Florida to stay away from them, they're nearby, whether you know it or not.
Right. Oh, there goes that other glass.
Again, why are you bringing attention to my life? Keep it on Nathan and the podcast, which, by the way, we are way over time. Let me acknowledge that.
Are we? To be like a restrictive time thing?
Well,
I mean, we clearly have stuff to do. We're all so busy.
YouTube rules about.
We say it's 2 hours. If I didn't exist, there'd be unlimited time with him.
Well, see, now I think there's a whole subgroup right now that's wondering how many bottles of wine you can get through before we wrap.
100%. That is existing. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And they're wondering.
I'm enjoying it.
How much do I have to drink to not
me under the table right now? Like if I were to try and keep up, I'd be all like, I don't know what the hell's going on.
Wine is much easier to drink than beer.
We're doing okay.
I don't agree. No, if we're talking Guinness, no way. I'd be like down. I can't savor a Guinness. It's just it's down.
But wine is just like apple juice. So I mean, it's apple juice.
Yeah, maybe that's apple juice.
Yeah, she gets like the $6 wine off the shelf, and she's not really drinking real wine.
What is the Boone's Farm stuff?
Yeah, that's not exactly Napa Valley Merlot or anything.
Excuse me, it's called Quail Oak.
Quail Oak. I think those are two things that have never actually come in contact.
Where is this Quail Oak you speak of?
No, those are the best kinds, though. I mean, they do the job.
And they taste like juice. They don't taste gross, and they do the job. Exactly. So why not? And only $6 a bottle, man.
There you go. See, so you are the smartest, girl drunk out there. Yeah.
Why does it have to be a girl?
Well, you're a girl.
Why can't I just be this
kind of girl drink?
Out there, period.
It's a sweet girly drink, kind of.
It's totally marketed towards girls, 100%.
Yeah, I don't see any self-respecting macho man being like, "I'm gonna go out and get me a bottle of some Quail Oak."
Quail Oak.
Give me the Quail Oak. I can't think of nothing else but the Quail Oak. I mean, it's almost as bad as like Alizé, except some rapper said Alizé once. So then you had a whole bunch of macho guys being like, "I'm gonna give me some Alizé, put it on ice."
Anytime a rapper
it is good.
It makes it cool and like hard.
Yeah.
It's the way of the world, man.
Yeah, anytime a snake person says something.
I own retics. That's the first one.
That's the snake one.
Flex, I think.
I'm not famous or anything, but I'm going to say this, because we're live. I see it in the corner right there. It says live, but Cristal fucking sucks. That's a bottle of fucking shit water. Is what that is. That stuff tastes like asshole.
Well, people often come here for booze recommendations, so that's really what we're all about here.
Don't lose your man card. Drink some drink some nail spit. That's what we should do. Start our own fucking liquor line, nail spit.
You also can't be like so self-hating that like you got to act like some shitty, like you like Mad Dog or something like that. Like,
I'm sorry, wait, there's a person out there who likes MD 2020.
They're mostly homeless.
I don't know if anybody actually likes Mad Dog, but I mean, not that I'm saying it's
more of a choice that's made for you.
That was like the easiest bottle to steal because it kind of sort of was bent.
That's everyone's high school one. Yeah, MD 2020, and it looks like not alcohol. Like the colors are off, and oh god, but it's so gross. It is.
Oh man, I'm having some. Let's see. We got to change. I'm starting to feel sick thinking about it. I mean, it did the job.
Right, that and Four Loko. That was my high school experience.
I drink Steel Reserve like a.
I don't know. It's
like a man.
What's that? What's Steel Reserve?
It's one of those high gravity hobo beers. It's just like a 9% fucking. It's like it's a very high octane beer.
Natural ice.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's
Natty
like
Ice. It's worse than Natty Ice. It sounds.
It's like what you drink if you want to like piss yourself into a bush or something. That's really it.
Oh, jeez. You know what I was gonna drink? You know what I was gonna bring onto your little show as kind of a joke, and I don't think I could get through a full bottle of it, so I think I would have broke character. I was gonna break out some Zima.
I didn't even know they still make that.
I'm drinking Zima. Do they make it still? I don't know, but I had a friend in high school. He thought it was the coolest thing ever. He's like, no, it's like vodka. I'm like, nah, it's like not. You're not a man anymore, dude. You cannot drink that around us. Like Zima, really?
No.
I'm sorry.
Zima with the twist.
This is just
we have gone off the rails.
And between y'all and the chat is even more off the rails. The chat is currently trying to make jokes to make me laugh on camera and lose it on camera. They're trying to one up each other with funny jokes, and they really are funny. So Nathan, if you want to laugh after this,
I'll tune in after. I just
they said, what do you call a nurse who's unhappy with her job?
What?
A midwife crisis.
A midwife crisis. That's awesome.
That's kind of assuming.
They're pretty good.
So we've become so unentertaining that they have to come up with their own comedy.
Yeah, they're having their own thing. Yeah.
Keep the chat.
That is frequently a thing, that the chat can be completely different.
Is that saying more about us or them? I don't know.
I don't know. But after this, you should definitely go through and read through the chat.
Yeah, I will read through the chat for sure.
We have jumped the shark, as they say.
They're telling me I should just get box wine next time and put a straw in it.
Box wine with one of those hats with the little straws that come straight down. That would be awesome. Like you got a NASCAR wine.
Oh my god.
See, now that's what I expect out of Florida. That's just
what the beer hats?
The beer hats, watching the Daytona 500.
We're not stereotype. Okay. Hear what I'm saying? To hear what I'm screaming, man.
Oh my god.
It's not all about left turns, man. It's like, like we just go left and left and left. We know how to turn right too.
Would you ever feel one of these babies at 200 miles per hour, that steel between your arms there, brother, going left after left after left for 500 miles? Can't beat that shit, brother.
Yeah, that's funny.
Oh, fuck. Okay, so I felt like I had a closing question.
There's no going back to.
There's no going back. So
there's no more I guess either. They're just making jokes at our expense now. I'm surprised.
The chat is
just on the logo on the shirt. I mean, I'm not knocking Bruce's project there, but I can't maybe it's, having the beers in me, but the crocodile looks somewhat provocative in a way.
I did not notice that. I don't.
Florida is just a little provocative.
Like
it's kind of dick shaped.
Yeah, Florida itself has always been kind of the private parts of North America. But
it is America schlong, for real, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's hanging low. At least it looks like we're peeing on the commies.
Well, now every time he wears that shirt, that's definitely going to be my... because that's where the lake is. That's actually about
what's this lake called? I don't know.
What's that?
Stop touching his nipple.
It's my nipple. This is my straight up nipple.
That's Lake Okeechobee. Come on.
Oh, it's Okeechobee.
Why did they choose to show that? Because I'm sure there's other lakes in Florida. Why did they choose to highlight that one?
Well, because if they didn't emphasize Lake Okeechobee, then it would look like a penis. With some
so they had to choose one lake.
Some kind of weird flesh-eating disease there on the inside. See how it's got that dugout spot there by Tampa? Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Looks like it's got some sort of problem.
That's going to be an issue, yeah. How did we possibly get more off topic?
Him. But wait, is there really nothing special to Lake Okeechobee?
It's polluted as shit right now because of Big Sugar.
Wow, cool. Maybe they're based around there. Where does he live?
It's a massive lake. I mean, it is impressive to see. It's almost, well, you don't need to go to look at it to feel like you're staring at the ocean. You could actually just go to the ocean because it's on both sides. But I mean, it's a huge lake. You can see it from space and some stuff. So it's cool.
Oh shit! Some space and some stuff.
Yeah. If you were in a spaceship,
shit.
You'd be like, look at that. Look at that little hole.
That's Okeechobee. That's that lake there.
It's like a piercing horror story. You go to a tattoo shop. They missed the fucking mark by a lot.
What was fuck, man? Closing question. What do we
You keep saying that. Oh, if wow.
I don't have anywhere to go. And I have two friends that are driving back from Texas right now, and if they're watching, they're probably laughing at our expense, so we can keep them up. But
yeah. So have you been to Texas a lot? I feel like you have, but your mouth
not a lot. I used to go out there and help out at a couple. I got a couple of colleagues / friends that do some stuff out there, and the friends that are out there right now were doing I don't know exactly what they were doing. They were doing some alligator related thing at some big event for he's out there. So they kind of travel around and do traveling alligator-y related things. But Texas is kind of fun. It's, it's
just kind of.
Yeah. It's big and there's some oil and it's hot and desert.
Yeah.
Ow.
Everything
can explore,
Texas, including the bullshit.
That's true. That's true. But isn't there a lot of bullshit in Florida too?
Yeah, we are a pretty big cattle state. Yeah.
Huh. I see what you did there.
Literal. You got literal on me.
What? Yeah. Well, it's true, but also metaphorically speaking, there's quite a bit of bullshit here. Bullshit, if you will.
Okay, so we're gonna end this for real.
I've been ducking off trying to not get caught smoking on camera, but I realized this whole time it doesn't matter that I'm leaning towards the bottom corner.
It literally you can do anything on this podcast.
Secret time. Much. Other things have been smoked on this podcast before. It's not the first time.
Oh, really? It's one of those.
It's not the most. Yeah.
You can't say secret time and then put it on a live podcast. That's not what secret time works.
Yeah, we're kind of exposed the secret. Did you have a closing question?
Well, I thought we were talking to our friends here.
We are talking to our friends here. Well, we also have like 1,000 listens on this podcast. So unless we have 1,000 friends, stop. Oh, I don't.
We do. We have 1,000.
We're gonna actually end this. Closing question to every guest is always, Nathan, if someone wants to reach out to you, how can they get in contact with you?
You can find us on Facebook at just search at Smooth Waters Wildlife, or I think that's the same thing for Instagram and Twitter too. But our website is waterswildlife.com, and they can just kind of reach out and find our phone number and email, and that's how you can do that. But we're all over Facebook.
Another question in my brain: why Smooth Waters?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. It was available. No, that's not true. Okay, so Smooth Waters, there's a lot historically. Like, I have a kind of marine background, family-wise, lineage-wise. So they were sailing people of the sea, seamen, if you will. And so Smooth Waters was like not necessarily a good thing. You know, if on your ship isn't going to sail, also that's bad. But for me, when it came to crocodiles, you know, Smooth Waters was kind of the last thing you saw before you fucking die, right before they erupt and get you. So it kind of had like a little secret meaning. But also, I had a pool cleaning service called Smooth Waters Pool Cleaning Service, and then I didn't change the name, so it's Smooth Waters Wildlife Park. Let's just stick with that whole crocodile danger thing. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't sound as cool as the more fucking killing you part is a lot cooler than the pool cleaning part. But it all works.
Waters, it sounds like it flows. It sounds mundane and calm, but it can be just as dangerous as it seems to be calm. So it's kind of neat in a punk rock kind of way.
Hell yeah.
James wants us to bring back our other last question, which we owe him. He sent us a king cake, so we owe him.
That is true.
Our friend James, who's like a good supporter and always watches the podcast,
and sends us food in the mail.
That's awesome.
Sounds weird if you don't know context, but he likes us to ask our guests, what is the weirdest food you've ever eaten?
Food I've ever eaten. Oh man, you should have asked this like a while ago when we had things to distract ourselves with, so I could really give this some thought. The weirdest food I've ever eaten.
Well, have you eaten alligator?
Yeah, but I mean, that's not weird. That's it's basically save yourself some time. If you want to know what alligator tastes like, go eat a pork chop, because it's pretty much the same thing. Tastes like that, except it's probably better for you. It's more lean.
Podcast, but I thought it'd be rude.
Well, that's your first thought.
Since it's like what he works with, I thought it'd be rude to ask him.
Well, I've tried it. Like everybody in Florida has tried it at some point. It's a white meat. It's pretty lean. It's probably pretty good for you. It's expensive as hell though. So like nobody really just, hey, I'm gonna go out and buy a pound of. Nah, fuck that shit. You're going to buy pork chops or chicken. I've tried shark too, just to kind of see what that tastes like. And man, is that good. But I don't eat it anymore. And probably not for the reasons you think. I don't really necessarily, I wouldn't say I believe in karma, but I'm not going to snub my nose up at it. And just in case there is something to it, I figure, because I spend a lot of time in the ocean too, surfing and doing whatever. So I figure if I don't eat sharks and I don't eat alligator, they might not eat me too. So maybe we're cool. That's just our deal. That's our secret cosmic deal. I won't eat you. You don't eat me. And we'll be fine.
So is shark the weirdest?
I still haven't thought of the weirdest thing that I've eaten. I'm like a garbage disposal. So maybe I don't know what weird is. I would say probably the weirdest thing I've ever eaten was maybe like month-old Chinese food. Refrigerator, it still looked not bad, so I gave it a shot and didn't die. And maybe it wasn't a month old. Maybe it was only like 3 weeks old.
It's the same thing.
Some months are closer to 4 weeks. Look at her face right now.
I'm sorry. Did you literally shit and puke your guts for the next day?
That's fine.
That shit's so preserved. I'm sure you're good. It's not even real food.
I don't even trust Chinese like a week after. It's not, but I guess it's not real to begin with.
It always looks the same, yeah.
Oh,
Respect.
God.
I'm glad you're alive after your Chinese eating.
I'm glad you're alive too.
Well, it builds up the immune system and all that type of stuff. So you gotta, once in a while you gotta, drink like nasty water and eat raw chicken and stuff like that.
You heard him, guys.
Don't do that.
Doctor's
Don't do
orders.
that. You know what though? The best sushi I ever had though was in a weird situation. We were, like probably the best sushi I ever had was red snapper that was, like literally fresh out of the ocean.
That sounds
like they caught it, the guy killed it and just took off a sliver and handed it to me right there. I mean, like within, 5 minutes of, dispatching the thing. And I was like, God damn. It was like weird for, because I mean, that's not how you expect to eat your food. You know what I mean?
Wait, so you didn't cook it at all? You just
raw fish, sashimi or whatever. Yeah, that's just raw. It's raw anyway. Okay. You don't cut a sliver off a fish and then chow down.
Right.
I mean, we could have eaten it like an apple, just like, hey, look, floppy fish, like all crazy, like,
Okay.
That's very primal and very like. And the weird thing is, I only heard of doing that only like 2 weeks ago. Someone mentioned it. I was like, wait a second. People just eat raw fish, and now you're the second person.
You've never heard of sushi?
Yeah, but that's like different raw fish. That is different raw fish.
Oh, like
or
out of the ocean.
My head tells me it's different raw fish. It's gone through some shit.
It's gone through a slight process.
More than the stuff shit out the ocean.
But that's probably better.
I don't know if you're well, yeah, I mean it was fresh. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how much processing like, raw fish goes through by the time it gets to the shitty ass Chinese buffet that you think actually has
real
legit
fish.
Fucking USDA approved.
It's sushi from the Chinese place. We don't even go to a sushi place. She eats it from the Chinese.
Well, explain why we don't go to the real sushi place.
I don't like.
I was about to call you something I can't call you on camera.
Wow.
We've been dropping F-bombs. I'm pretty sure you can call him whatever you're going to say.
It was worse than an F-bomb. It was not an appropriate racial slur.
Well, you didn't have to say it.
Against whitey.
It's people who are
like nobody cares about that.
That doesn't make it better. But he doesn't like fish, so I can't go to all sushi places. So I have to get my sushi from Chinese places because this stupid person doesn't eat fish.
Stupid person.
That's so frustrating.
Well, at least you're not stuck just getting it from like Walmart.
True, because I would never trust that.
That's the weirdest thing I've ever eaten was sushi from Walmart. Like I was like, it was a morbid curiosity thing. I was like, this is not a good idea. Like this can't be. This is no Walmart sushi. That's just not no. And I was like, I'm gonna do it. I might die, but I'm gonna try it.
You're gonna do it
to see,
and you lived to tell another day.
I don't think there was any actual meat in it anyway. I think
it probably wasn't even real rice or real seafood.
No,
it's. But okay, we're ending this, guys.
I was waiting for you to say it.
We're ending this.
Ooh, Tom 2 gets sushi from 7-Eleven. That's
oh, see, I'll eat the Jamaican beef patties from 7-Eleven, but not sushi.
I didn't even know they had
that. Must be a regional thing because
the beef turnover.
They don't have those at our 7-Eleven.
What?
We get to throw hot dogs on the rotating thing, which I will never try. And I love hot dogs, but I won't go.
That's what I loved about South Florida. There's a ton of people from like Trinidad and Jamaica down there and stuff like that. You can get the best like beef turnovers. Oh, it's awesome. The food down there is insane.
Yeah.
Hey guys,
I was giving you room.
You were giving room, and then we talked about, and then you brought up Tom 2 7-Eleven. You didn't get what room did you give me?
You can't ignore that kind of.
You can't ignore 7-Eleven sushi.
You're the teacher. You have to control the classroom because we'll just keep talking. We'll just keep going.
We're unruly.
Yeah, my children are much easily more distracted than he is.
You mean you totally fucked up your English, but go ahead.
Is he
My
more
children are much more
distracted
than he is.
Oh, so I'm better than your children?
They're easily distracted.
so
you are not easily distracted.
Oh, I'm not. Okay, cool.
Wait, yeah, now I'm confused.
I can wave a shiny object in their face and they are distracted.
Okay.
To get you off topic. I mean, like to bring to. I can't.
Okay, sweet.
And
Good job ending
Nathan, thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
It was my pleasure.
Was 80% about animals and 20% about other random shit, which happens on this podcast more than should.
It didn't go off the rails until like the very end there.
Yeah, by the time
I think that was fine.
Yeah, by the time Joe was 4 beers in and I was 90% of a wine bottle in, that's when it happened.
Yeah. And whoever's sticking through it is meant to be here.
James Lewis is questioning that I'm a teacher, and he's really making me mad. I'm drinking. Don't qualify.
So Nathan, allow me to do the honors. Nathan, where could people reach you? Did we do this already? Where can
the email contact?
Oh yeah. So how do we usually end this?
Unless people want to reach out to us, you can find us on portcitypythons.com, Port City Pythons on Instagram, Port City Pythons on Facebook, theportcitypythons@gmail.com if you want to be old school and email us.
Smooth Waters Wildlife Park
is Nathan's. If you're in the Florida Daytona area, you should go check out.
Or if you're going to Daytona for the Reptile show,
which is I don't know when.
Yes, probably soon, but swing by and check us out on the way in or the way out, because we're not.
Either way,
there you
go check out Nathan and some crocodiles and alligators and lizards and tortoises and no snakes.
That he'll wrestle any alligator.
He will not.
These snakes slithering around just in the parking lot and stuff. So
there you go.
Maybe some snakes. You never know.
Snakes
it's the snake lotto around here. The snake lottery around here. So. But it's fun smiles all day, every day. So
I love that. Fun smiles and crocodiles. Yep. That is such a great.
We need a catchphrase. What do we do?
Your catchphrase is if you made it this far, you're on the team.
Yeah, it doesn't rhyme.
It doesn't rhyme. We need a rhyming catchphrase.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to rhyme. That's a pretty good one. If you made
but
it
this makes it better, and it makes you imagine
it's like a motto.
The stars things coming after it. You know what I'm talking about when you see on like videos and stuff where it has the catchphrase and it's like
is this the first time you've ever been drunk?
You know.
The more you know.
The more you know, and then like it's in the arc, and then it has the thing shooting out.
All right, so
cares.
I've been drunk in the podcast a lot, but I don't think you ever have. So this is fun. It's a fun switching of roles here.
Yeah, you got. I've had a lot of fun with Drunky McDrunk-em-ups here.
Yeah.
I'm not drunk, but.
Hey, I would like to say thanks for anybody that tuned in and stuck it out with us.
It's still watching.
Seriously,
but that's the thing. These people will watch for like 5 hours. I'm ready to half the time, and they want to keep watching. Our longest podcast, I don't know if you know Cody and Pia Bartolini.
Bartolini.
Something like that.
Yeah. Cody,
so,
sure.
Yes, if you know Cody, you know how Cody can talk. And we had Cody on the podcast. I think it was 4.5 hours. And people watched till the end, and I was trying to end it, and they were like, no, don't end it. I'm like, it's 4.5 hours long. Like, we've been talking for so long, and they will stick it out.
I can say that they're going to get mad at you down there because they've been asking some questions probably, and you have neglected your viewers.
Yeah, but their questions at this point are not on topic.
Well, James Lewis went to Daytona on his honeymoon, so that's one thing.
Okay,
and he only lives in Louisiana, so. And I don't know if he means Daytona like the Reptile show, or he actually went to
I
the
hope
beach.
the Reptile show is not his honeymoon. I really know.
Yeah, I don't know if you would really go to Daytona. I guess you could go to Daytona on your honeymoon. The only thing I think Daytona is good for, because they don't really do spring break anymore. They do the Bike Fest thing, but they have like there's like two competing, I'm going to try and keep this PC a little bit. Two competing gentlemen's clubs, I guess they call them, right? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, one one of them has a midget stripper, and the other one has a like one-legged.
Oh my
Is
God.
midget
famous
Did you do?
thing? They're known for it. Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm wondering if he went to either one of those on his honeymoon.
I doubt he went on his honeymoon to those.
I swear, it's like those are the things that they promote. Come check out like one-legged Mindy. Watch her down the.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! I don't like that. Okay.
And this is The More You Know.
Yeah. And now you know. CBS cares. CBS cares.
And the acronym of Portcitypythons is PCP, so you can say PCP cares.
Yeah, in more ways than
In
one.
more ways than one. PCP cares. Oh my God, this is so terrible. If I don't have to reiterate this now, this is not a PG podcast.
That was
Yes, this has definitely become 18 and up. It's not as bad as Deadpool. I mean, so it's not NC-17.
That's what we're comparing ourselves to. Our podcast, Deadpool.
There's a little bit more production value in Deadpool, but I mean,
yeah,
whatever.
a little bit.
It's tiny.
I don't know.
Oh God. Oh my God, Nathan, thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
We will have to come down to Florida and hang out sometime. And we have like a fucking lunch.
There's a million things in Florida we have to see.
Yes,
you need to take like a month-long vacation in Florida.
Florida's the thing.
For snakes, for sure, or for reptiles, 100%. Thank you, everyone.
Inside secrets too on places to go. So.
Ooh,
oh shit!
Ooh, I like that. Thank you, everyone who watched in the live stream, and everyone who listens.
Thank you to Ryan talking about quad amputee nugget porn.
Oh my God, please stop! You did not have to bring that up. I'm trying to end this. I am trying to end this. Thank you to everyone who watched this live stream, and thank you to everyone who downloads the audio version that will be released.
If you're listening to this right now,
that will be released tomorrow when Joe makes the audio version, and it'll be available anywhere that podcasts are found: Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, anywhere else.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys. We will see you next week. Goodbye.
Later. Well, we go.